Happy Hump Day here in this last week of November of 2023. My name is George Brauchler. This is The George Show on 710 KNUS. I will be with you through the 6, 7, 8, 9, and dumping it off on a guy named Chuck Kirk at 10. And then we go from there. We go live and local from 3 to 4 with Jimmy S. But you've got me for the next 4 hours. It is one of those days, folks, where the technology, I think, has become a challenge for both BTs and me. I have my own things going on here with an internet that seems to have devolved into an Etch-a-Sketch like maybe AOL.com era speed. So, you watch the screen populate from the top down, that little, like it's a dot matrix printer. Like that's sort of what I've got going on here. We'll deal with it throughout the day, though. I can confess that to you now because no one in management is listening. Hey, it's 57 degrees today. That is as good as it's going to be for the foreseeable future, at least as the Channel 7 people foresee it. Mild and dry, good day to get outside because tomorrow, according to these folks, and you'll remember, this is just different than yesterday. Yesterday, they had us in the 40s today. So there's some wackiness going on a day-to-day basis, not even outside the 3-day projected window. 38 degrees. Folks, that is a 19-degree adjustment to the south tomorrow. And then Friday, flurries and cold, 37. We start to climb our way back out into Saturday and Sunday, but never really get back above 55. Today is your best shot. If you're going to try to wear that tankini one more time, and I really am talking to you, Billy, this is the opportunity to do it.
So you're saying I should have shaved?
Nope.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, good.
No, I think that's a step too far. That's you transitioning, which I'm not judging you for. No. It's different.
Well, sometimes the smooth skin is nice.
Is it?
Yes.
I don't. Yeah, I did that as a member of the swim team. We did that before.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Before league, and it was awkward.
Yeah. I did not know you at the time, but I would taunt the swimmers about that incessantly.
Yeah, listen. If you're in the Olympics, it probably makes a difference. If you're in league, and again, I got ape-like legs, right? Like the hair is light colored, so you don't really see it as much, but you get within striking distance with your eyeballs and you're like, there's a bit of a thicket down there. That's true. But at the time in high school, it wasn't like that. I mean, you're talking about a team full of largely hairless individuals anyway. Like I don't know where all the big hairy chests went for Bear Creek High School, but they weren't on the swim team. They were probably playing basketball or something. But I do remember at the time, Coach Katie Schmeck-Pepper. That's a real name.
Yeah, I know her husband.
Yeah, Tim. You do, from Mullen, because I knew Tim from Mullen, too. And then Tim went on to Chaparral, by the way. He's retired from there.
I know. He was great educator, great guy.
Great. And he was also a swim coach out at Mullen.
Yes, he was. And somehow managed to get the somewhat unathletic, okay swimming team to do pretty well every year. Had a couple of friends that actually went and qualified for state and stuff. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. He did a lot with very, very, very minimal resources. Very. In fact, that
was true of all the sports except football and basketball.
Yeah, it was strange. It was the thing at Mullen when they found out there was a swim team. They're like, wait, what do you mean you need a pool? Can't you guys just like mime or something?
In Englewood.
Yeah, they did. They did. Not even our own. Yeah, we didn't have our own pool. We had to go borrow from someone else. And it was. I think it was. The athletic director was like, well, can't you guys just get in the parking lot and mime? Like, kind of jog back and forth. And that was the theory.
You can.
Yeah, exactly.
You can.
Okay, sorry.
It's a little different. Yeah. But so heading into our league event, and folks, if you just tuned in here, Billy has taken us down yet another unpredictable, unwanted path, really.
You're welcome.
How to become hairless for tankini weather. But it was right before league. I was one of the team captains. I've told that horrific story before.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of dudes in the old Foothills pool out there off of Old Kipling, which is just right next to Carmody Junior High. Back then we were the Carmody Cobras. Now they're, I don't know, the Carmody Hugs or something ridiculous. But it was an all concrete men's locker room with some metal lockers.
Oh, great.
I mean, yes. Oh, buddy. So, and you know what happens to concrete when it gets wet. Whoever designed that place hated people. But nonetheless, there's all these dudes shaving their legs. And it's kind of, a light atmosphere. It's the last big practice before the league meet. Everybody's having a good time. And of course, because it's teenage guys, it turns into a shaving cream fight.
That's good. Now,
and if you've ever
just as a reference point, I just want to rewind the video just a little bit here and
Uh-oh.
just
Yeah.
remind everybody that the story that George is telling is him in a locker room with partially clad other men, and they are shaving each other. Okay, continue.
Well, I want to be clear that everyone was shaving themselves.
That's
there was
what
no
you
shave.
say.
Nobody had ever reached out to a buddy and said, "Hey, can you get me back there?" There was none of that.
And we're supposed to trust you.
You might have dudes looking at each other going, "Hey, man, you're bleeding back there," but that's about it. So these guys are going at it, and it wasn't the gel shaving cream; it was the kind that goes, that
the
kind,
big foamy stuff. Yeah,
the big foamy stuff. And
Yeah.
when you get a handful of that, and you do like a whip-like thwunk, and throw it, it is awesome because it moves across the air in a kind of perceived slow motion.
Oh yeah.
And then when it hits, it explodes. Well, that only had to happen once for all of these guys to see that this could turn into something really fun.
Oh, this is great. Yes.
Yeah. So this becomes, I guess this is the equivalent of the sorority girl pillow fight, but it's a bunch of dudes in shorts that really too tight to wear in public, swim trunks, throwing big handfuls of shaving cream at each other.
That's great.
And then guys started to flee because it became a goal of let's get them in the eyes, because you want to blind them.
Yeah.
So guys start to flee, and dudes are running around on the wet cement floor going down. And so there's like scraped knees. There's a little bit of blood. Guys are fleeing outside. It remains me and a dude named Matt Durkin, who has hidden himself in one of the bathroom stalls in a movie-like pose where he's got his feet pressed up against the sides.
Yeah. So you can't see the
So
feet
if
on
you
the
look
bottom.
underneath the stall, you can't see it.
Yeah, nice job, Matt. I appreciate you.
Oh, yeah. But it's obvious, right?
Yeah.
Like he's going to go. So I get a handful of the stuff. I slide my way down. And right as I get around the corner, pop the door open, give him a quick thwap, bam, right in the face. He runs into the wall, bounces off the ground, and scurries out. Oh, yeah, because there's a cement wall right out. Like he's running straight ahead. And then scurries out into the open area. It's just me.
Geez. Yeah.
And now there's some blood, maybe some skin. I can't tell. And I now hear the Katie Schmeckpepper, Tim's then wife, screaming, "Brauchler! Brauchler!" at the top of her lungs. And I walk outside, and it looks like the aftermath of a rugby scrum. Like dudes, hands on their hips, breathing hard, wiping stuff out of their eyes, some going to the pool to get stuff out of their face. She tells me if it wasn't for the fact that the league match was the next day, she would fire me as the captain of the team and kick me off the team.
I would have looked at the gun. This is team building. Do you understand how close we are now? This is great.
Like, this is one of those moments I'll take with me 40 years in the future to when I'm on the radio. But remember, I told the story before, this was the coach who never wanted me to be the captain, but made the mistake of turning it over to the popular vote. And of course, Vox Populi, those folks just rose up and put one of their own in charge. And I think she was just probably beside herself.
Oh, yeah.
But that was my one journey through hairlessness, was the first one in our junior year, and then the senior year one, which I don't know how they changed it after that, but I was no longer involved in decision making.
The only thing that I would have loved to add to that story would have been at the very end when you are standing alone inside of the locker room that you've obviously claimed now as your territory, that you should have uttered some sort of a victory scream. There should have been some sort of a, some sort of like in SpongeBob, they always do the victory scream, like,
or
there should have been something like
there. End scenes of Predator when Arnold Schwarzenegger's standing there covered up in mud with the big torch and the thing. I should have done something like that.
There should have been something.
But it was, in retrospect, everybody had a good time. I mean, things went wrong a lot. Like when some dude brought clippers. Like maybe the day before that to cut people's hair. You wanted to go, you want to put the little funny swim cap on. You wanted to have less hair.
Yeah.
And so dudes were volunteering to get their heads shaved into this trash can by laying across bleachers with their head over the end.
Yeah.
And so at one point I go, oh, let me have a shot at this too. Because dudes were like kind of taking turns shaving heads. And I think it was a kid named Bill Dickey, great swimmer, great, nice, super nice guy. And his head is over there. And guys are coming up just shaving off his long hair. And I was like, I got to get a piece of this action. And so I grab it and start doing it. And in one vigorous shave, I see something fall, a huge clump of hair fall into the trash. It is
Oh.
also the guard off of the shaver. And I look up, and this dude has a $50 size bald spot right on the top of his head.
Oh, good job.
Because
Nicely done.
oh, I instantly reach into the trash, look around, no one's looking, reassemble it, and hand it to the next guy.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
good luck.
Yeah. Good luck. Have
I
fun with this.
walk off to hear, "Hey, Bill, you got a huge bald spot." And he reaches up
Like,
and
what?
looks around, and I'm now halfway across the pool. Like, no one
Yeah.
can see me
Nope.
because I'm not looking.
Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of the year,
Oh,
we're
geez.
giving out these silly awards for the swim
Yeah.
team. And there were dudes that were in the slower swim lanes. Like their best event was the front float and
Yeah.
stuff. And we
Oh,
called
yeah.
it the sea cow lane. So I went
that's
and got
great.
a little play school cow, stuck it in a jar of water, and that became like an award. Well, for
Nice.
Bill, I went out and found a piece of carpet that matched his hair color
Oh, no.
and created a band that went around it. So it was like an eye patch, but it
Yeah.
was for his head.
Oh,
That he
that's
could
fantastic. Take over the top.
It's ridiculous. And again, listeners, I just want to remind you, this all began with Billy announcing or asking, should he
Yes.
shave?
Yes, that's where we started this one. Oh, and by the way, Lou down the hall has said that you have not connected through the magical streaming device.
No, I have. I just didn't turn on the camera. Sorry, this whole story.
Oh, okay.
I'd been connected. Now I just turned it off.
Okay, I was just curious.
No, I'm sorry.
That
I
is
turn it off
wonderful.
when I'm wandering around the kitchen
Oh,
because I
that
don't
is
want to,
that is fantastic, though. That is great. That
What a ridiculous story. This again is this and many stories which I still don't feel comfortable telling despite the expiration of the statute of
Yeah,
limitations. I am really amazed at how far I've gone in the criminal justice world, given
Yes.
some of the conduct I've engaged in, and why at all
Yeah.
I am put in a position of authority. I look back and think this should have never happened. I should
Yeah.
I should be somebody that Mike Johnson is trying to put into a micro home.
exactly.
You know,
Oh.
I mean, I should not be in the position.
Yeah. It's funny when you talk about coaches. I had a coach in college that I've heard this repeated a couple of times, and he had told this to us and said that he had heard it through. It was a professional coach that I think. Oh God, I've got to remember who it was. It might be Kenny Daglish. I don't know if Daglish was in charge of either Scotland or Liverpool at the time. One of the two. And he was having a problem having the team gel. And this coach that I had in college said, we were kind of having some. You were talking about, we didn't have those together moments. We weren't doing the shaving cream fight in the, in the locker room. We weren't on the same page. And the coach pulls me aside and he goes, "Yeah, I guess I need you to do something." He goes, "Take, these couple of midfielders here and take the defenders, and I need you guys to go out and go drinking." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" He goes, "Just go drinking together." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "It'll solve the problems that you're having." And he was right. And I talked to him afterwards, and he said it was something that he picked up from watching. It was a hero of his, Kenny Daglish, who, again, I don't remember if it was Scotland or Liverpool that he was managing at the time, but he talked about the idea that he was having problems with his defense gelling, and that he was asked in an interview, "Well, what is the problem with it?" And he's like, "The guys just need to go out to the pub and get smashing drunk together." He goes, "After that, everything's going to be fine." And weirdly enough, and I think it was Stevie Nicol that was playing, that was the right back at the time, and he goes, "Yeah, he was right." He goes, "Yeah, we went out, we got smashed, and yeah," he goes, "everything worked out." He goes, "All of a sudden now we were friends and we understood each other and we could play as a unit because we had this shared common experience." And it was something that a coach had told me in college, and I've never forgotten that one. And we did, and it worked. It was fantastic. It did. It solved a lot of the problems, especially between the defense and the midfielders at that point.
It's also the difference between dudes and women when the relationships.
Yeah.
That's one of them is the path to bonding. Like, I don't know what the female equivalent is, and I don't want to stereotype by saying something stupid like if they shop together, because that's 30 or 40 years ago, but I don't know of anything like that for how women bond with other women in those settings. The other thing is dudes are different when it comes to an affront. You know what I mean? Like if some guy on your team or in your world pisses you off, at best, there's a very quick eruption. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it subsides and people go on about their lives.
Yeah.
My experience is that with women, it is a building, white, hot, smoldering ball of hate that will consume them for the duration of their lives. I mean,
yes. Yeah. In fact, okay. I'm going to pull the curtain back a little bit here on the show.
Oh, not on video though.
No, not on video. No.
Oh, okay,
no, because I don't know what's. Let me check what underwear.
Nope,
Sorry.
don't.
No, I'm kidding.
No. Well, they used to be pink.
Yeah, it used to be.
No,
But yeah. Are those racing stripes? No, sorry.
Oh, hell in the front.
Sorry about that. Yesterday, there was, and I shared it with you, but you haven't heard the entire story. I got into a rather loud discussion. Some would say argument. Some would say just a lot of yelling back and forth with one of the fantastic salespeople here. We were having a disagreement, and it got loud, as in we are yelling at each other down the hall. Again, if you've dealt with me in this, I don't make personal attacks. This is about business. There's a difference. And you and I have these arguments too off the air, but it's always business. It's never a personal thing. It's always about the show and the time. This was business. We were arguing about something with an advertiser. And we had a bit of a disagreement, and we were yelling at each other. And I'm like, oh, man. And that was middle of the show yesterday. By 10:15, he and I had hugged it out. Not just, literally shaking the hands. Hey, we're sorry. Hug, everything else. And I explained, I said, I see where your point. And he goes, I see your point, etc. And he's like, okay. And we are so cool. And I need him. And he is one of the most valuable allies that I have on the sales department here. And I need him. And so I felt bad about the argument. But both of us, just like you said, we came together. It was less than 45 minutes later. And he's like, I'm sorry I got loud. And I'm like, I'm sorry I got loud too. It's like, he goes, I understand your point. And I'm like, I understand your point too. It's not that you're wrong or anything else. And we'll get this together and we can work. He goes, yeah, we can work this together. That was it. Yeah, it was 45 minutes later.
Yeah,
we were cool.
Thank you
yelling at each other.
For what folks don't know is thank you for taking one for the team, Billy, because that was really my scream match that I was not there for.
Oh, it's okay.
But the other thing is, Mark's value as your ally is greatly enhanced by the fact that he is your only ally.
Yeah, that is true. That's why I need him. That's why he's so important. Yeah. I can't alienate everybody. It's just the majority of the staff that I have to alienate. That's about it.
So. No. The one other thing that took place yesterday. Did you have any trivia last night?
No. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was at it.
How did it turn out?
It was good. Decent. It was good. Mr. Kellner gives his best wishes. Saw him and the kids last night.
Well, then I know you didn't see him.
The wife was busy with some stuff, so he brought the kids in, had some food, had to chat with him. Teams were good last night. It was fun, although I still don't think they're picking up on some of the music references, because some of the references are obvious. And I had one team that yelled at me that they're like, that can't be right. I'm like, no, that's right. And it had to do with the cartoon that featured the character, the Great Gazoo. Do you remember what cartoon that was? It's a classic cartoon.
Great Gazoo?
Yeah, the Great Gazoo, the green guy from the future that's a scientist that comes back. And yeah. Do you remember Great Gazoo? He's on any floats and yeah.
No, who is it?
Oh, it's on the Flintstones. But the questions were, and the two ones there that are really kind of together are either the Flintstones or the Jetsons. Same production house, very similar storylines, things like that.
Yep.
So, but what I did reference is that while you think that the Great Gazoo would make an appearance in Jetsons, he never did. But there is a Flintstones episode where they go into the future, into a world that is very similar to the Jetsons. They don't actually cross the streams and get into the Jetsons world. And then the lady's like, that's not true. How do you know that? I'm like, you just don't know me. That's just the stuff I know. So, yeah, I did that. And then, and then there was a ton of sadness yesterday afternoon. And I am incredibly angry. I am still seething deep down inside of me. And
this sounds like soccer.
Absolutely. Yes, it's much more important than regular life. My team, the Newcastle Magpies, got stoinked by the referees yesterday at the tail end of the game in Paris.
Non-consensual.
It was. They didn't even give you the decency of a how's your father a reach around. It was just a pshong, and they just it's just awful. I know. I tell you, I know where the line is. We get ready for there.
3, 2, 1. Dead.
The problem is that it was we're in Paris. PSG has pounded us at our home game. They beat us 4-1. It was embarrassing. We are behind them by a single point in the standings in the group, and only the top two go. We're in third. We go to Paris. It's like you go and you have a match there, especially Champions League. It's like going into a bear's den. It is nuts to get there, and the team scores in the first 24 minutes off a nice rebound. Alexander Isak does what he's supposed to do and chases the ball after a shot, rebound, and he gets it and puts it in. So basically, then in the soccer parlance, Newcastle parks the bus. We go all defense, just hold on for dear life and try to protect this. It is 5.5 minutes into stoppage time, and Paris Saint-Germain brings the ball into the penalty box. Moussa Dembele goes to cross the ball, and it hits Timo Livermorento in the chest, and then bounces off his arm and continues, and continues through the box, then is cleared. The Paris fans and the Paris players go nuts and start calling for a handball, and the virtual referee, the VAR, gets involved, looks at it, and calls it a penalty. And so we give up a penalty and end up tying the game in the final 2 minutes of injury time. Yeah, and this is the problem with it. And this is I've had problems with the handball rule in soccer for years now, and this is getting absolutely ridiculous. This is one where it would be as if the NFL would institute a penalty and say, if you come over and touch the quarterback with both of your hands, that is a penalty. And then you come back and go, well, how am I supposed to tackle him? And the referee says, that's your problem. Figure it out. That's basically what's happening in soccer with the rules as far as handballs inside the box. It is very situational. There's no real line delineation. And the problem I have with this one is that the Newcastle player was tracking backwards. He's running towards the goal at the time that the cross comes. So his arms are moving as if he's running. It bounces off the middle of his chest and then careens into his left arm. His left arm is running, and they view that as a handball. The question is, what is he supposed to do with his arm? He's not stretching it out in front of him. He's not making himself bigger. He's not putting it up and over his head, and not going to the side like you're a basketball defender. He's not making his body bigger. He is in the action of running. It is a motion in which his arm has to do in order to move forward. Otherwise, he falls over because it changes your center of balance. But yet, because the ball comes off his chest and then bounces into his arm that is there and doesn't careen and change the direction it's on, it grazes the bottom of his forearm. And that is considered now a handball and award a penalty. I can't figure out for the life of me how a defender is supposed to play inside of the box if that's a penalty. And if I was a striker, every time I got in the box, I would just flip the ball now into the defender's hand and then call for a handball, because evidently that's what we're doing. And it was a nightmare. It was it crushed me. I am still so
they got a handball job.
Yeah, they did. Nicely done. Yeah.
What I think you're highlighting, and this is a conversation we had on Monday as well, is how modern rules here are ruining the sports.
Yes.
Whether it's football or the other football.
Yeah. It's like football when they have the idea of, well, you have to have a catch and then make a football move. Pardon me? What's a football move? I've seen a lot of different things, guys on the field doing a thing that's a football move. Some of them have fallen flat on their face. Is that a football move? I mean, again, how do we interpret that? And that's where we are on the soccer side of things. And so I am a bundle of anger deep down inside right now, because I'm furious over this. But
this has been cathartic for you. I hope it helps.
Yes, it does help a little bit. I don't think I'm going to have to light things on fire later today. So
listen, under the caption, let's try to stump Billy, because as you know, Billy is a fountain of a bunch of information.
Yeah, this is scary.
On this day in 1935, one of the great thought experiments in physics was published.
Ooh.
Any ideas?
No. No. What is it? What?
It is by a guy named Erwin Schrödinger.
Oh, Schrödinger's cat.
There it is, Schrödinger's cat. Which, as I'm preparing to ask this question, I looked up and still don't understand. Didn't understand it in high school. Didn't understand it in college. Don't understand it now.
Yeah, it's the idea that it plays with the psychological issue of object permanence. It's more or less a psychological test on that idea. So as far as when the cat's in the box, for folks that don't know what the hell we're talking about, and you will hear in parlance from time to time, not really hear so much, but Schrödinger's cat, this is the description that it's given. It's called a paradox of quantum superposition. Yeah.
If you nod it off right now, you're just like me the first 3 times I read it. Here is how it goes. A hypothetical cat is placed into a box with some subatomic radon generating thing and poison, and a little vial of poison.
Yeah.
If this radon detecting device detects any radiation in the box, it breaks the vial of poison and kills the cat. A lid is placed on this experiment. You can't see in it. And because of that, because it cannot be observed, the cat is at some future date simultaneously alive and dead at the same time.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because the idea of it's a hypothetical cat, and the idea of it existing, and through quantum mechanics and quantum physics, that is there a split inside of certain timelines, that because you're not certain of what's happening inside the box, both possibilities can be correct in the future at the same time. Yeah.
It feels a little bit like, and maybe it has nothing to do with it, but based on observation, it's if a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? It feels
Yes,
like that. Like if it
it is.
can't be observed, we can't know.
Yeah, that's it. That is a really, really good way to kind of break it down to its core skeleton, is the idea of if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there, does it make a sound? Yeah. Are you assume because nothing's there to record it or hear it, do you know that sound actually existed? So the idea that you can't see the cat inside the box, does the cat exist? Is the cat alive? Is the cat dead? There are three different questions as far as object permanence and things like that. So yeah, it's a fun one.
Disappointing, but not surprising that Billy knew what Schrodinger's cat was. If you had just said that to my kids right now, of course, Jeffy, who's in high school doing all that chemistry, physics, all that voodoo Trey, they all know what that is. They've used it before with me, and I just do that kind of ignorant now, like, yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, Schrodinger's cat. What about Schrodinger's dog?
Yeah.
And that just sounds stupid because it has.
And then there's Schrodinger's snake, but that's you got to go to an adult site for that. Sorry. Couldn't help myself.
No. If there's a Schrodinger snake, this should be Thorpe's snake. What's the experiment, the thought experiment we can do with Thorpe's
I don't know. It's I know. The thought experiment I'm having right now is how do I convince my lovely wife that I don't need just one additional snake, that I need 3, because there are 3 that I want right now, and there's no way. I mean, I might be able to get.
I think 2. You have to convince her that if you just purchase the one, it's likely to die on its own. But if you bring the other 2, they mutually sustain each other.
Yes, exactly. Maybe it's a Schrodinger snake. They would have to. Yeah, that's we just know that we're going to get. Maybe there are 3 of them in this box. Maybe not. There's a breeder's been teasing me with stuff that he's hatched out, and it's stupid. So.
Listen, when you can be teased by a snake breeder, buddy, you've put yourself in a unique place in society.
It is ridiculous. It's and he knows that I'm an addict, and so he's not like hey, but he's he knows that I appreciate the stuff that he's doing. But I thought I was done with corns, and he's throwing this corn snake at me. I'm like, oh,
that's a T-shirt sign. I thought I was done with corns. ...
Yeah. Oh, and it's we can't do this on the air, but I found a sweatshirt that I'm gonna have to get my wife for Christmas. It's got a great little phrase. I'll tell you.
Hold on, you can't do it on the air because you think she'll hear it?
No, because it contains a naughty word. So we'll talk about that off the air. So even more than what I normally go to.
I thought this was. I want it to be a surprise.
No,
I just want us to stay on the air.
Yeah, exactly. It's just on the air. So yeah.
Well, final thing, and I know we're going a little bit late, but final thing. It's post-Thanksgiving. Last night, drug up the Christmas tree. Ooh. And assembled it. Didn't do the ornaments yet. I want to have, Jeffy and Graham help do that. But I did assemble it. Last year, made the decision to transition to a pre-lit tree, which we'd never done before.
Yeah, we did that too.
It's always been like the string of lights that you and I talked about. And so I went pre-lit. This one is possessed. There's something wrong with it. And what I mean by that is it's got that little step on and off button, that attaches to. And I forgot about this from last year, but I was reminded of it early this morning. When you turn it off, it doesn't stay off for reasons that I cannot predict, control, or time. Nothing like that. It just comes on. I'm sure I got it from the greatest tree purchasing place of all time, Home Depot.
Ah, yes.
But when you step on it, it turns off. Go into the bedroom, come right out afterwards like, oh, I forgot to get a glass of water or something like that. And it's on again. And I'm looking around and I'm like, Jeff happens. I'm like, did you turn that on? He's like, no, it just came on. I'm like, damn it, I forgot from last year that it does that. So I turned it off again, and I thought maybe I'm just not stepping on it hard enough. So I gave it the old good,
Oh yeah.
50-plus-year-old dude standing on something thing. Go back into the room, come out this morning, it's friggin' on. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Is this like Chucky Tree or something?
I
Like,
think someone's
what
trying
is happening?
I think someone's trying to tell you something, that you don't have the Christmas spirit in your heart yet. They're trying to tell you.
In that they do it through the lights? They instill the Christmas spirit through lights?
I don't know. I'm just saying that maybe later this season you're going to be visited by 3 ghosts. I don't know. I'm just saying. Prepare yourself.
And some of those people may not even be dead. I think Stefan is one of them.
Yes, exactly.
Stefan will be one of the ghosts. I'll find him rummaging around the place where we store liquor.
That's
you know
exactly
what I mean?
it. Like, it's like, I'm the ghost of Christmas. Where's the bourbon?
Yeah, that's right. How long's this wine been sitting out?
Exactly.
Anyway.
So we did the pre-lit Christmas tree too a number of years ago, and it's been wonderful. I didn't think I was
You're
going
still
to
there.
like it.
You still have it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I didn't think I was going to like it as much. And although there is an argument a little bit in the house because you can change the LEDs so they can be multicolored.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now.
Yep, or they can go white. And sometimes there's an argument in the house about whether or not they need to be colored or white. That occasionally people in the house will change the color of the tree, and then other people change it back, and then other people come back and change it again.
Billy,
so there's a soft thing that happens in the house.
You're probably then dealing with the same thing I am. This is a tree that has its own remote control.
Oh, we do not have the remote. I'm impressed.
And I'm standing there last night with Graham saying, Graham, learn this so you can teach Dad. And I'm thinking, my God, how far have we come? Like, I can't imagine as a kid having a remote control for that. It was always crawl under the back of the tree and plug it back in.
Yep. The one I did know someone that did have it was an electric tree, but what it was was the stand, and it was plugged in, and they'd push the button, and then it would slowly rotate. So the tree would just
interesting.
Yeah, it was really interesting, but seemed rather useless. But okay, traditions. Do you have, when you're decorating the tree, do you have some sort of a tradition in the house? I know you haven't put up the ornaments yet, but is there something you guys do? Is there some sort of a Brauchler tradition that goes on? Because we've got one in our house.
No, and I want to hear that because we don't, other than, as the kids have reached certain ages, really encouraging them and in some cases relying upon them to do the ornaments. I just want them to be involved. And like even last night with Jeff, where I was like, hey, Jeff, come on up here. Let's do this tonight or tomorrow. And let's get this thing fired up. And he was like, nah, I'm okay. I'm like, Jeff, please, buddy. Yeah. And so he's like, I'll come up and put some ornaments on. I think they know that that's a big deal for the parents, not so much for them. Graham is enthusiastic about it. Of course, Trey and Amanda aren't here. Yeah. So no real tradition with it. You guys?
Yeah, I have a built-in advantage. Katie, who is the oldest daughter, the senior in high school, is a huge Christmas fan. This is her favorite time of year. So she really rallies the troops. She, as in after Thanksgiving, a certain radio station here in town that plays Christmas music is nearly the soundtrack in her house almost all the time. It is always playing. She's always playing Christmas music. She loves it. So she gets everybody and kind of rallies the troops. We have a tradition, and I would highly suggest anybody, if you are starting a family, if you're getting married, if you're doing anything, starting the family traditions together, do this. If you know somebody that is going to be married in the next year, here is the perfect marital gift. They will never forget you for this. Here's what you do. And I adopted this from my parents. Okay. Every year when decorating the tree, you take it's a gold, it has to be a flat one, but the gold glass ornament in the balls that you put on the trees. Yeah. It's a gold one. Yep. And you grab a pencil and you write the year on the top of the ball, and then you write down all the significant events.
Oh, you told me this last year, and this was genius back then.
And you do this, and you write all the significant events of the year, and then you hang it on the tree. So as you go forward, you have a catalog of your time together as a family. Yes, you do it in pencil, and it has to be on the gold ball because that's the way it writes.
Doesn't get smeared off or anything. Where do you get the gold balls? Where do you get your balls?
Right now, I actually had to order some more. I just ordered some from Amazon. I'm not sure if I like them or not, so I only ordered a pack of 4 because I want to make sure they're the right ones. And if they are, then I'm going to go spend like $100 on them just to have enough of them because they're hard to find. But they've got to be the flat matte. The shiny ones don't work. It's got to be flat matte, and the pencil, mechanical
link
pencil,
to that,
great.
man. I'd be interested because that's a smart thing. I'd start it even now.
Oh, you should. I mean, anytime you can start it, it is fantastic. And the fun thing is, the kids then grab them and they read them as we are putting the ornaments up. And so they'll stop and say, "Oh, I have 1997. I have 2001," and they always love it when they can find the year they were born. That's like the joy. They're like, I found my birth year. And so they'll go through
anything.
and they'll tease each other about things. And so now my wife and I, we've got 25 of them on the tree already. So it's kind of nice. So
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it is really cool. So again, if you know a couple that is going to be tying the knots, do this as a wedding gift. It is a wonderfully inexpensive but very thoughtful wedding gift. If you have something you're like, I don't know what to do with them getting gravy boat. No. Do this. A couple of bucks for the gold ball. Give them a note. Tell them what to do. And you have changed their life. You've given them something that is a memory that will continue as they get older as a family. So, yeah.
We figured it out. It's Schrodinger's cat, but it's Thorpe's balls.
Yes, and exactly. Are they here or not? And
different kind of, it's a memory experiment.
Are they
more
itchy?
Than a
kind of,
no.
Hopefully you were watching on the YouTube
there. Listen, here's what we've done is we've run out of time to tell any more of the Christmas tree stories for today. But of course, we'll dive right back into these things in the 6 o'clock hour in future days. We got to cut away for a break, come back, get made depressed and smarter at the same time. Maybe even a chuckle or two about the mayor's car. Coming up on the Thorpe Report, followed by You Choose the News. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Yep, we talked our way through a good chunk of time here. We've got to get to it. It's the Thorpe Report with William.
Yeah, you don't know how it feels to be going this fast, sir. See what I did there?
No, I don't.
The Tom Petty thing there. Okay, more mild and dry weather conditions today in the forecast. We're climbing back up into the 50s. Could see some breezy conditions. Start a gradual warming trend through the weekend and into next week. Highs are going to warm back up into the 50s after dipping a little colder on Friday. Parker Police Department is investigating a murder-suicide. 2 men were found dead with gunshot wounds Tuesday near a hotel and a restaurant. The scene was about 12:47 in the afternoon. Parker Holiday Inn. Saltgrass Steakhouse is the location. It's Cottonwood Drive. Yeah, Cottonwood Drive, E470 at South Parker Road.
It's over by Lifetime Fitness.
Yep, yeah. 2 men found outside. 1 pronounced dead on the scene. Other taken to the hospital, declared deceased there. 2 men were the only ones involved in the shooting. 1 gun found at the scene. Right now, they're saying not clear what led to the shooting, but looks like murder-suicide. 13-year-old boy is facing charges after the accidental fatal shooting of a teenage girl during a family party over the weekend. According to the Aurora Police Department, they arrived to a report of a shooting around 10:20 p.m. Saturday, 1000 block of Norfolk Street. The victim is a 17-year-old girl accidentally shot by a 13-year-old during a family party. Responding officers performed life-saving actions until medical response on the team. Girl taken to the hospital, later passed away. No other information available as far as what.
Wait, what's a 13-year-old doing with a gun? There's laws that say you can't do that.
Yes, exactly. So what happened there?
One other quick update. You had read yesterday about a 13-year-old in Aurora who stabbed to death.
Yes.
I found out a lot more about that case. It sounds to me, and I obviously haven't read the discovery.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like it's self-defense. Like dude was stepdad, came after mom, kid intervenes.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But 13-year-olds killing people is crazy.
Oh, that is absolutely crazy. And speaking of stabbings, no charges are going to be filed in connection with an October fatal stabbing of an attempted robbery suspect in Broomfield. The Broomfield Police Department has determined that the guy was defending himself and defending his home when the robbery suspect was inside and got all stabby. Also, auto theft is a problem for all of us, including Mayor Mike Johnston. Not the first time, but for the second time, the mayor's car has been stolen. Yes, it was stolen about a month ago, since been recovered. And the mayor's office did not release details about the theft or according to what had happened or anything else. Again, it was stolen around 2017 as well. Also, opening statements are scheduled to begin in the 3rd and final trial of the 2019 death of Elijah McClain. We're going to be recording some of that. And a Southern Colorado district attorney is accused of breaking so many rules that every judge in her district has said they were forced to recuse themselves after hearing one of her cases because they thought they would have to file a complaint against her. You talked a little bit about this, and this is Linda Stanley, 11th Judicial District, top prosecutor in the Chaffee, Fremont Park, and Custer counties. Before a man charged with murder was supposed to go to trial in her district, she did an interview and it raised questions, leading most of the judges to say, yeah, I'm going to have to recuse myself.
She has recently made the announcement she will not seek re-election.
Ooh, a surprise. And PT's Show Club has gotten a 14-day suspension because evidently some of the Show Club ladies were offering some perks. We'll just leave it at that.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Alrighty. That's all I got, sir.
Yeah, that's taking the lap dance a little too far. Listen, let's cut away for a break. Billy will move some things around in a way that you won't know it, but we'll all benefit from it here. And then we'll come back and do You Choose the News. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you at 710 KNUS. Got to get to it. It's time for you choose the information with Billy Thorpe.
Yes, sir. Despite our better judgment, we are yet again going to play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. You choose the news. Yes, it is time for us to go through ridiculous stories that we have scoured the interwebs for this morning, giving them ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game because they are still paying us to do it. I'm so confused about that. But hey, McDonald's is good. Alrighty, sir. Here we go. Your headlines today. Headline number 1, severe lack of self-awareness. Headline number 2, officials upset over businesses' excellent bookkeeping. Headline number 3, not a wall, so how does it work? And headline number 4, embrace the bloodsuckers. Your choice this morning, sir.
Embrace the bloodsuckers,
Embrace the bloodsuckers. Yes, that's what we're doing in Scotland right now. They have recently, the science hippies, have been harvesting some leeches. Actually, medicinal leeches, one of 37 proprietary species that are being protected in Scotland, and they are trying to repopulate the areas in the waterways around Scotland with all of the delicious bloodsuckers. It's the largest of 17 leech species that live in the UK. They do have some medicinal properties, but they're also an endangered species, and so Scotland science hippies are trying to reintroduce them. They've captured some leeches, and they're spreading them around. Yes, everybody, more leeches for everyone. I know.
I thought that was just politicians.
I thought so too. Alrighty, your next choice: severe lack of self-awareness. Officials upset over businesses' excellent bookkeeping, or not a wall. So how does it work?
I suffer from this, but a severe lack of self-awareness.
Severe lack of self-awareness. Yes, we are going to talk to Senator Sportsball Tommy Tuberville. There, out of Arkansas.
Oh.
He recently has said that we have the weakest military we've ever had in probably a year in my lifetime. Really? If only there was something that we could do. If only there was something that we could continue having people promoted and fill the leadership if someone wasn't responsible for not doing, I don't know. But again, when the guy is complaining about lack of military preparedness, when he is single-handedly stopping some of the military preparedness, again,
it's time he's got to figure out a way to, he's got to figure out a way to get past this. If we can get a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, certainly he can get generals.
That's
promoted.
The problem is they keep coming to him. They keep saying, Tommy, we need to find a way to get around and a way to get past this. And he goes, no, we got to go with the run. That's the problem. That's really what it is. Alrighty, sir. Officials upset over businesses' excellent bookkeeping, or not a wall. So how does it work?
Not a wall. How does it work?
Yeah, how does it work? We're going to a small Mexican town of Saltillo right now because it's not a wall. So how does it work? But oddly enough, more and more migrants from South America are staying in Mexico instead of completing the travel to the U.S. So how is this possibly working? It isn't because of a bold statement by our president.
Right.
It isn't because of a giant wall.
No.
It has to do because of the economy, stupid. Here's the deal. The economy in Mexico is picking up. They have more than 1 million job openings right now. They're paying well, and they have relaxed their asylum regulations. While they are not taking in the same number of asylum seekers that we are, there are a number of people, including a recent Honduran refugee that is 28, that said he has found a perfect life in Mexico because he is getting paid. He is admittedly less than he thought he would earn in the U.S., but he's working for a U.S. company and is getting paid $800 a month. That allows him to pay everything he needs to live there and also send money back home. So maybe if the economy in places like Mexico and other places improved, maybe they don't come here. Maybe the idea of building the wall and just saying, hey, stay out, maybe if I don't know. That's what NAFTA was supposed to do, but evidently I'm an idiot.
How much time we got?
That's it. You have 23 seconds from now.
Listen, I can only read one of the great texts we've received so far. This is too heartwarming. Can we get back to the reach around?
You're my favorite.
That's a reference to you. Listen, when we come back, I want to talk to you about masks. I know they're back. ? George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 7:10 here in the U.S. It is Hump Day. It is also starting to seem like it might be a little bit of Groundhog Day. There are reports, you may have heard some of them, coming out of China. They're bringing back masks and social distancing as a result of flu. This is just the flu. Folks on the ground there are calling it white lung syndrome. There's a little bit of sound.
Now, where the COVID pandemic began about 4 years ago and where there is now a new surge of respiratory illnesses in children that are swamping hospitals. This time, though, important to add, scientists say they have not seen any new or unusual diseases, and the spike in illnesses is not as large as when COVID began. Liz Palmer has more on this wave of sickness.
Hospital waiting rooms, especially in Beijing and China's north, are full of kids sick with respiratory infections, including pneumonia. The surge in illness made headlines in China and set off alarm bells abroad. So last week, the World Health Organization asked China to explain what was going on. The good news is it appears the cause is run-of-the-mill winter bugs. Dr. Zhou Fengjiang is chair of UCLA's epidemiology department.
I think that the pandemic 2.0 is not there yet.
That first pandemic, COVID-19, which eventually killed millions of people, started in Wuhan, China, and Chinese authorities tried to cover it up. This time, though, the WHO says China promptly handed over persuasive data, showing the children were sick with known pathogens, that is, the kinds of common bacteria and viruses that occur everywhere.
In the United States, we also have the flu, we also have ISV, we also have a COVID-19. The vaccination is the key.
Chinese children may be especially vulnerable now because during the pandemic, widespread masking and lockdowns shielded them from so many bugs. Chinese doctors are now working overtime to care for this flood of small patients. But health experts say nothing at this stage suggests the rest of the world needs to worry.
Where have you heard that before? I seem to recall some initial stories like that coming out of the Wuhan wet lab out there some years ago. I have heard a bunch of people on social media and even on talk radio locally start to opine that this is the beginning of a broader and conspiratorial effort, if you will, to try to set Biden up for another re-election. The Dems win. We're going to once again have this virus spread over here. We're going to go to lockdowns and create all of that chaos. I'm not there, folks. I just want to be clear. I am not there. I do think we're capable of a lot of things. I just am not going to get there by guessing. And I think it's too easy for the people that are prone to conspiracies to simply conclude that, oh, well, this just must be, this must just be COVID 2.0. I don't think that's where we're at. But I do think it's concerning. And the fact that China is like, whoa, now we're forthcoming with all this information, it doesn't make me super trusting of them. I don't know what this is. The fact that it's targeting kids makes it seem far worse. But the question that it gets me to, and this is a conversation I want to have with you, is I'm not trusting of what China puts out in any way. And I'm not sure I'm going to be convinced if the feds were to show up again through the CDC and say, hey, here's another opportunity. I'm sorry, folks, we got to go back down this road. We got to do the masks. Remember how many lives we saved last time? And so what Billy and I talked about off air, and what I do think is a really important conversation is, would you? I mean, what are the circumstances under which the health department at the state level or the CDC at the federal level could say, sorry, we need to go back to masks. We need to go back to social distancing. Under what circumstances would you do it? Under what circumstances would you ever trust it again? Because I don't want to foreclose the idea that, yeah, you know what? COVID, Yeah, they probably overreacted, and they probably lost a lot of trust in the American people when Fauci started off by saying nobody needs masks, masks won't help, and then later on said, I did lie, but I had a super good reason for lying. That's different. Someone texted in, kids have no immunity thanks to the idiots that locked us down. Well, I know that argument as well, that we have not allowed kids to be exposed to stuff. I think that's why we have so many kids with this damn peanut allergy. Do you ever remember in school anybody ever asking, do you have peanuts in your lunch? Never. I don't even ever remember going to a restaurant and having someone say, do you have any allergies? Ever. And I don't think that we're asking it now because we're just super respectful of other people's health. I think it's because it's a real thing, and this feeds into that. People texting in, no mask. I want to hear from you. 303-696-1971. What would it take? Because you can't say never, can you? I mean, can you say there are no circumstances under which I would ever put on a mask again at the request of the government? I mean, if that's you, call in and talk me through that. Because as skeptical as I am of the man, I got to believe that we can agree that there's going to be something that could happen where we'd go, oh yeah, I'm going to mask up. And by the way, probably going to stay in the house for a little bit till this thing gets figured out. Now, that wasn't COVID. It shouldn't have been COVID. The things we did to kids, my son Trey, still dealing with the after effects of that ridiculous remote learning nonsense. I'm not talking about that, though. I'm saying, does that inform your opinion so much that you would never again mask up? Another text, more text coming in. No, a big fat no. Nothing. There isn't anything. Could there be a legitimate airborne disease that's out there that a doctor you trust? And let me tell you where I came down on this. Doctors that I know, including my own kid's pediatrician, were like, yeah, I think we should do this. And it wasn't like you will die if you don't. It was like, this is the smart move to make. We need to do this. And of course, because Trey's got the muscular dystrophy, he's got a bit of an immunocompromised system as it is. And the question was, whatever risk you think doesn't exist for everybody else, it does exist for your boy. What do you want to do? So it was easy for us. I mean, that was easy. You tell me there's a shot out there that will prevent my son or minimize the chance my son gets sick and has to deal with something far worse than anybody else. You got me. I'm going to do it. But now, I don't know. If the government showed up today, here's the other thing, folks. Remember, the COVID thing happened under a Republican president. Fauci was under Trump when this thing happened. I mean, if Joe Biden's director of the CDC or some other thing came out, my guess is you listening out there would instantly be like, oh my goodness, no chance in hell. I don't trust that guy as it is on financial matters, economic matters. Why would I trust him on health matters? Okay, but if there's a Republican governor out there, if it's Trump 2.0, DeSantis, Haley, and their director of CDC comes out and says, hey guys, this is real. Who would you need to hear from, by the way, to get the next shot or to get the next mask? What if Trump came out and said something other than the ridiculousness of, could we just inject bleach into our veins? And wouldn't that help? I mean, that guy comes out and says, hey, folks, I'm sold. I'm convinced we need to wear masks. Would you do it then? 303-696-1971. The texts that are, really pouring in here. It says something. Let's go to the phone lines right now. Ray, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think, Ray?
I have a definitive answer to that old philosophical question about a tree falling in the woods and
yeah.
To hear it. The answer is no. It doesn't make a sound.
Why?
Well, there's no such thing as sound out there in the environment. When there's a disturbance, no.
It's not a physical thing?
Yes, it's a physical thing. It's a scientific, physical thing. Now I'm trying to explain it.
Yeah.
When there's a disturbance out there in the environment, it disturbs the air, and that disturbance propagates through the air as a wave. And when that wave hits the eardrum, it causes it to vibrate. That vibration translates to the ear bone, and the ear bones are connected to a nerve that goes to the brain. The brain interprets that vibration as sound. So sound is something that the brain creates. There's no sound out there in the real environment. That makes sense?
Yeah. What about the waves? Aren't the waves sound waves? Aren't those physical things? And don't they exist whether we're there to hear them or not?
Yes, but it's not sound. It's a disturbance. It's like throwing a pebble into a pond. Those waves move away from that disturbance, but those waves aren't sound. They're just a disturbance of the medium of the water.
No, but whether we can see the waves or not, we'd say the waves exist.
Yes, but they're not sound. Sound is something that's created in the mind, in the brain. It interprets the vibrations from the wave as sound. It's an evolutionary way for animals to perceive what's around them.
Okay, how about this? I put a recorder in the woods. Everybody leaves. Tree falls, recorder records the sound, and then we play it back and I'll go, yep, that tree fell.
Well, that recorder interpreted the wave sound the way that the brain does. But there's no sound out there in the environment. There are only waves. For example, go out to outer space. There's no air out there. So if there's an explosion, there's no sound because there's nothing to transmit the disturbance. So
that is not how it was portrayed in Armageddon. But, and I'll take you at your word on that, but listen, if you're telling me that sound only exists once it's perceived, then the recorder capturing sound, it doesn't have anything, it doesn't have sound on it until it's played for the human ear. Is that what you're saying?
The disturbance is documented in the recorder, but it doesn't. There's no sound there. When we hear the recorder, our mind interprets the disturbance that the recorder makes through the air, to our ears as sound.
Ray, I feel like you're smarter than I am. I should pass you off to Billy. I think you've now put Schrodinger's cat inside my semicircular canals that connect my ear to my brain. Ray, thanks for the phone call. Ray's line is open, 303-696-1971. Barbara, you're on 710 KNUS. Barbara, what do you think?
Hi, George. I wanted to talk to you about the masking again.
Yeah, sure.
I will never, ever do it because it was such a joke in the first place. I'm retired from the Denver VA hospital, and we had to have our masks fitted. Just the KN, I forget what they're called.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, we had to have them fitted. And if you watch people, half the time, the mask is hanging below their nose.
No doubt.
You know,
all that's true, but that's true. But Barbara, is there a circumstance in which somebody you trust could tell you, Barbara, you need a mask, and you would go, okay? Because what you're describing is the boy who cried wolf syndrome. Only he didn't get 3 bites at the apple, right? It was once, and so the United States government and the CDC and Fauci cried wolf. Turns out there wasn't one, and now the next time, if there is a real wolf, what then? What do you do?
I think if people start dropping over on the streets, I'd wear a mask. But until that happened, no way, because it's right up there with climate change.
What if they're dying in hospitals, and you believe that they're dying in hospitals? Would that do it? Because we had that with COVID.
Why they're dying in hospitals? Because in this last go around, a lot of the people died because they were put on the mandatory remdesivir and they had kidney failure and they died. I had a friend who lost her father like that.
If your doctor, Barbara, and I'm just presuming you have a regular doctor that you've seen, you know, you're not stuck in that Kaiser system. If they told you, Barbara, you need a mask, would you believe them?
No, because my doctor is a liberal.
So hold on, this is important. Do you think their politics inform their medical advice?
Yeah. Well, depending. There's things that I have picked up and had him ask him to check, and lo and behold, I was right, and he never would have checked it otherwise.
I don't want to get into the weeds too much on this, but are you talking about, hey, doc, would you mind testing for blank? And he's like, nah, I don't think so. But then he does and finds out, oh, my God, you are from Krypton or something.
Yeah, well, I just had that happen recently. It was an issue with parathyroid, and I don't mind disclosing this because it's nothing, no big deal. I was on calcium because I'm older, shall we say, and I was taking calcium regularly as prescribed. And then in talking to my sisters, I realized both of them had issues with their parathyroid, which is different than your thyroid, as you most likely know. And the parathyroid puts calcium into your system. My one sister's doctor didn't catch it in time, and she now has stage 4 kidney disease as a result of that excess calcium. So I asked him to do this. He'd never, considered doing it before. And I asked him to have me tested, and sure enough, my parathyroid is off. It's not normal. So he did a bone density. My bones are stable. So he took me off of the calcium. But the thing is, I think even in a doctor-patient relationship, I'm retired from a hospital, so I know doctors aren't gods,
No, I get that. But it sounds like you think had he been a conservative doctor, he would have sought out those tests without you asking him to.
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't think that would have anything to do with it. We argue about different things, and he's an excellent doc. He used to be the doc for the hockey team, and he's an excellent doctor, but we don't see things eye to eye sometimes. And
But if he told you, he's an excellent doctor. If he told you, Barbara, I really am convinced that whatever this thing is so bad, I need you to wear a mask, you would still say, I appreciate the input, hard pass.
Yeah, I would just be careful where I went. You can get groceries delivered. You can exercise at home. You don't have to go to the gym, So if I thought it would put my family in danger, daughter and her husband or my grandchildren, when I was with them, I would wear a mask. Otherwise, no.
Yeah, Barbara, this is a good phone call. Barbara, thanks for this. I appreciate that. 303-696-1971. I also appreciate the story about you advocating for yourself with doctors, because independent of this, I just think far too often doctors say stuff and they kind of expect to just say stuff and be unchallenged on it, and you just go A-okay. There are times where you have to ask other questions and push back. I just don't know if this is that. I mean, if Donald Trump comes out and says, I'm wearing a mask, telling you folks, this thing's got me scared, and he would never use the phrase scared. This one has everyone on my staff except me scared. I'm going to wear a mask. Would it make a difference to you? 303-696-1971. Bunch of texts coming in. Someone asked, who can afford to have groceries delivered? No way. They lied about gain of function, masks, ivermectin funding, safety of the jab, and on and on. I get it. I understand your point. But the question is now, is there ever going to be a time in the future, whether it's Trump as president? In fact, it's one of Trump's kids that's the head of the CDC. And they come out and they go, folks, no joke. This is bad. You got to wear a mask. This will actually make a difference. Or not even a mask. It doesn't have to be a mask. You have to get this inoculation or vaccine or whatever term they want to use. You have to get this shot, folks. This is legit. Would you do it? Would you believe it? And why not? 303-696-1971. Here's another one. Sounds like the herd of 710 listeners might be thinning under the right future medical circumstances. I get what you're saying. Yeah, well, this is it, right? Has this past pandemic and our response to it so broken such a large portion of the population that if a legitimate wolf were come to the door, we wouldn't believe it if we saw it? We wouldn't believe it. This is the boy who cried COVID, right? Would we believe it if it showed up on our porch? Or would we just say, nah, you lost me last time, I'm never going to trust you again? Another text, people just stop keeping up with any COVID or medical research, and it shows. People keep repeating things from years ago that aren't true. And this is what I'm talking about with the boy who cried wolf thing. Someone texted in, fool me once, George. I get it. If you believe that round 2 is supposed to fool you again. Here's another. If a man alone in the forest says something and no one hears it, is he still wrong? I think Ray would say no, unless it had been recorded. Nebraska here, George, I didn't do it last time. I didn't wear the mask and I didn't take the vaccines, and I'm in pretty darn good shape for my age. No one here was locked down. There might have been a few COVID cases, but nobody was locked down and restricted. Now I think this is quite suspicious with another big major election coming in 24. If you weren't suspicious about it back then, you should be now. I've heard this a lot. There are growing voices of this. Someone at 726.
That hurts my head a little bit. That hurts me. Help me understand why, one, the first pandemic was done to influence the American election, and explain to me again why this illness would be done to influence the American election. I mean, I'm sorry, but that seems like the idea that America views the entire universe revolves around what happens inside of our borders. You really think that that's what China's doing? Is they're going to have another illness and they're going to get their own people sick in order to do it in America? I mean, we've gone through a time in which we had the movie, like the TV show 24 with Kiefer Sutherland. Now, in the narrative of 24, if there was going to be a biological attack, how many times did they start the biological attack on their own people? The answer is none. They did it in the population they were trying to kill. So the idea that you start the biologic pandemic in your own population is stupid if you are attacking another set of people. You wouldn't start off and say, you know what, here, we're going to start a war with this other country. First, we have to start shooting our own people. No, that's not what you would do. I mean, come on. Help me understand this. I just want someone to call on the phone or help me understand why this makes sense to you. The idea that China would start killing its own people in order to do something here?
That's a different part of this conversation, why you mistrust, and I want to have it. But the bigger question for me is, and I think Barbara's highlighted it, the 8 jillion texts that keep coming in, is that has trust been so destroyed by this last COVID response that even if something showed up, that the president of the United States, Donald Trump, if he's reelected, and his own kids are like, folks, this is real, got to do it. Would you do it? And if not, why not? 303-696-1971. Got to cut away for a break here. I want to tell you about Gay Ribble at the Empower Home Team. We're going to get Gay in the studio. She was going to be in here tomorrow. A little logistical challenge on our end. That's me, not Gay. We'll have Gay back in, I hope, next week or the week thereafter. I just love quizzing her on what's going on with the real estate market. She is a subject matter expert. She's been doing it for decades in the metro area, and her bottom line is not money. And certainly not her money. Her bottom line is your satisfaction and your happiness, and the way they ensure that is with something that nobody else does. It's called a guarantee. As to the timing, the price of your home, if they don't do it, they give you cash to make up for it. All you have to do is check them out at sellwithcertaintycolorado.com. Sellwithcertaintycolorado.com, or you can call them, and this is what I do it, at 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD. Gay and her team at the Empower Home Team of Keller Williams, they will put you at ease. They'll take this stressful situation and make it completely manageable. Give them a call. Check them out today. When we come back, we'll get to more of your calls, your texts. And whoever said, texted in, hey, stop eating on the video. It's gross. I haven't eaten on the video. I don't know what you're looking at, but I haven't eaten on the video. Maybe you saw me chew or yawn or something. But I just want to make sure you know that I'm about to eat, but I will not eat on the video. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Lots of text on this issue. Really what we're doing, if you're just tuning in here, is there is a story that Billy played coming out of China where there is now growing concern, and I presume it's growing concern based off what happened with COVID-19. It's something called white lung syndrome, or at least that's what the people on the ground are calling it. The doctors are saying that it's just the flu. It seems like it's targeting the kids out there, but they're going back to masks and social distancing. Not all across the country. They're trying to really downplay it. We've been told China's really forthcoming with information this time, whereas they tried to hide and lie about it last time. Not as relevant to me now as the question that we're exploring, which is America's response to COVID-19. Fauci, the CDC, the lockdowns, the devastating impact on education that we're still dealing with our kids, all that stuff. Has that thing so impacted you that there is no willingness to trust a future government that says, hey, it's scary, this is real, you need to get this, whatever term you want to call it, this shot, let's call it this jab, in order to minimize the chances of your death and the death of your loved ones? And the question I've asked is, what if Trump said it? What if Trump came out and said it? What if it was Trump's kids? They're in charge of the CDC and they're like, folks, I'm freaking out here. Like we're about to be in The Walking Dead or something. I don't know. Like, would you do it? And what Barbara, who called it, and others that have called it, and all these texts have been like, I don't think so. They're not a universal no, but there's a whole heck of a lot of no, way more no than yes. Here's another text. This is a text to Billy. China has always practiced in fantasy. They kill off their own people in many different ways, and that is a fact. I have 40 years of medical background, and when my old country doctor tells me we should be suspicious about anything that China does, you don't know if they're really killing off children. You don't know what they're doing. I now have no trust in these people. I don't think I ever did. But who's in the White House now, huh? Follow on text. I agree with the Democrats are in bed with China. Think about it. And COVID started in China with their own people. And then I'll get to the phones here with Jay and Brian and whoever else is calling in. And keep doing it at 303-696-1971. I'll let you know when the line's open.
Those texts there both assume a conclusion that, as to use your line, is not in evidence. There's no conclusion that this was a biological weapon that was released in order to impact America, which, again, very super ethnocentric. Those are assumptions inside of those texts, that it was directly attacking America. And the way that they did it first was to release it onto their own population and then send it to Italy. That was the way. That was the grand plan.
That's how I'd have done it.
Of the Chinese.
I would have actually gone through France, but I do get it.
I just that's the biological, rather than bringing it to, I don't know, a major U.S. population and releasing it here. So then when everybody looks at it and goes, oh my gosh, look, COVID started in America. What were they doing? No, but I'm an idiot. I'm just going to sit in the corner here and I'll just be quiet.
No, I think the other part of this, though, is that whether that particular conspiracy or theory is true, the fact that China came out early, lied to the planet Earth, did everything they could to not raise the attention necessary to keep this either within their own country or at least minimal impact on the rest of the world, that combined with dudes like Fauci, who came out and said, yes, I've lied to you, America, but I did it for your own good. Now you can trust me. I mean, we're at a place here where people's trust is broken to the point where I don't know that anybody can change their minds. Let's get to the phone lines right now. Jay, you're on 710 KNUS. Jay, what do you think?
I enjoy your show very much.
Hey, thanks,
excellent point. I think it is good to talk about trust. I think we need to trust learning from the past and history. I don't think basing our thoughts on what a Hollywood writer put in the script or not is good philosophy to go, well, they didn't do it on 24, so it must not be so. That's you kind of have to analyze that and go, that's just fantasy trying to explain reality. I'd rather have reality explain reality. And you were dealing with a party that has said, never let a good crisis go to waste, and that they will take it to their political advantage. I don't think they're doing it where it's after they just want to wipe us out. It may be a real virus, but has the government, if they are so worried, shouldn't they just immediately cut off travel like Trump did? but they're just talking about this now, trying to get people worked up.
Well, I
It's
wonder.
very suspicious.
I wonder what our government's reaction to this is. I haven't heard them put anything out yet. I imagine they're still a little gun shy. But it sounds like, Jay, you would be incredibly skeptical of a 2.0 of any kind. And I mean, the fact that it's in China probably makes it a story, right? Like if this were happening in sub-Saharan Africa, you and I would not know about it. We would not be talking about it. But the fact that it's in China right now makes it seem like, oh, here we go again. This is going to be round two.
They've already come out and talked about this several months ago and thinking, well, it may be coming back here, may be coming back. And now it's coming back as we get closer to elections. That makes it very, very suspicious.
Is it your sense, though, that this is the product of some sort of political or geopolitical effort to, I don't know, change the world or dictate the outcome of elections like our own in 2024? What do you think is going on?
Well, if they can declare an emergency, that gives them a lot of power, and it allows them to bring back, or part of the problem with the election is that they extended ballot and they didn't have to show verification. The more they open up just to everything, and they declare an emergency, oh, we've got to let all votes count. And a lot of them have been proven to be fraud. And is it how widespread was it? It's just, we don't know. Did it change the election? I don't know. But there was fraud.
But you're skeptical, Jay. What I hear you saying is, look, I wouldn't trust the government. Is there somebody in your world, or even like a Donald Trump or someone else, that could come out and say, nope, Jay, this one's legit. I don't know what we did last time. It sucked. It was wrong. We overreacted, whatever it is. But I promise you, this is the bad one. You need to get the shot. You need to mask up. Is there anybody in your life that could tell you that, where you'd go, okay?
Well, it'd be the people that said don't use masks and saying, okay, we've got to use something. But if we're looking at science has shown most of those masks, if not all, cannot go against the virus. And so that's another, if you come out with a virus mask, that would be a thing to be worked on. But I don't think people can do it because they have pores in the eyes.
Jay, excuse me.
Yes.
What do you mean by the mask not being effective against the virus? What do you mean by that? Help me understand that statement.
The virus molecules are smaller than what the mask can block.
How does a virus get transmitted
Even
airborne?
Doctors.
No, Jay, how is a virus transmitted airborne? How does it do it? Because that was an airborne virus. How is it transmitted?
It can be touched. There's all different types of viruses.
Airborne. No, Jay, my question was about an airborne virus. How is an airborne virus transmitted?
It would minimize it, but it doesn't keep you safe because people who used masks and took the vaccine also still came down with it. Right? That's just the fact.
Okay,
came down with it.
Jay, you understand that mask wasn't a magic.
24 guy.
It wasn't a magic shield that was protecting you from everything. And you also understand that airborne viruses attach to water molecules. That is how they are transmitted through the air. The filter on a mask doesn't have to be small enough to keep the virus from going through it. Has to be small enough to prevent the water droplets and transfer. The reason we were wearing the masks was not to prevent you from inhaling the virus. The reason the mask was there was when you were exhaling, if you were ill, to stop spreading it into the air around you. That mask you were putting on was never to prevent you from inhaling the virus. It was there to prevent you from exhaling it on everybody else if you were infected and didn't know.
Then
that was the function.
Sick, then don't make the people that feel good or are feeling good wear a mask.
Some people that can feel good,
sick,
Jay, some people that are feeling good still were shedding virus. That was the issue. I understand that our rules about masks, I would agree with you, were stupid. And the way we went about it was ridiculous. And we didn't talk about what it was, why you were needing it, and what the issue was. Remember the first time that we locked everybody down, we all then went and stood next to each other in the supermarkets. So it wasn't going to work. But the idea that the masks don't work scientifically, that's not correct. The masks do work.
But
Jay and Billy, thanks for the conversation. Jay, I'm sorry, man. We got to cut away for a break here, but I love the conversation. You got it started. I appreciate that. Jay's line is open at 303-696-1971. Got to cut away for a break. Let me just read you a text here. I would need to hear from Alex Jones and the ghost of Dr. Schrodinger. Another text. If Joe from Arvada calls and says he's now wearing a mask, I'm buying a full hazmat suit. maybe that's what you need to hear from. I do think Jay hit upon something, though, and that is if the people who said don't listen to the government last time now say, I'm going to participate in this, maybe that's the only way to get there. I'm not sure how we get there from here. We'll get to your calls at 303-696-1971 and get to your texts. I just want to tell you about our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration. This is a guys only kind of ad, because if you're a dude and you're suffering hair loss, that in the battle between your scalp and your hairline, the scalp is winning, you can retreat, you can surrender, you can shave it off just like my good looking brother did, or you can say, no, I'm going to call Dr. Tanya Pauls at Advanced Hair, and I'm going to hear their pitch. And if you qualify, they will guarantee you the success of their efforts. Those efforts also get discounted if you call up and qualify today. You get $250 off, 250 free hair grafts. Why not take a shot through just a phone call of maybe getting back that sense of health, that confidence that comes from feeling like you look your best? 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR, or check them out at advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. When we come back, you, me, and who would you need to hear from to take that next jab or wear that next mask? Would you ever do it again? George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Hot topic today. Some texts that have been coming in, trying to keep up with them. There's just so many. We know that well-fitted N95 and KN95 masks work. I've been wearing mine in populated indoor spaces the whole time. It hurts me 0% and keeps me safer from COVID, which has potentially serious or long-term complications than anything else that's circulating out there. Seems like a no-brainer. I'd ask you, texter, though, are you still wearing it today? Like, do you wear a mask everywhere you go all the time because it could prevent some sort of virus? That's interesting to me. Another one, how many Chinese people did Mao sacrifice? Yeah. Her bottom line, here it is. I have zero trust in anything the government says. Their bottom line is your money. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I think Billy is missing the point about China. Didn't the government restrict female births and even euthanize unwanted girls? Let's go to the phone line. Brian, you're on 710 KNUS. Brian, what do you think?
Hey, George. I mean, good topic. China. This virus came from China, and they don't care about their people. They, forced abortions, the sweatshops for kids to make products. They don't care. So the fact that they would sacrifice some of their citizens' lives doesn't surprise me at all. And they knew they could force quarantine people so they could contain it to some degree. My aunt's done a lot of research on this. There was an economic forum in Wuhan.
Yeah.
Where hundreds of people from all over the world attended for a week. It was almost a week. Literally 2 weeks after that, you're seeing COVID show up in all these different countries. So, yeah, definitely plandemic for sure.
Do you feel like this is part two of that? Like the first one, I can't wrap my mind around China just deciding, hey, let's go infect our own people as a way of infecting the planet. I could see them trying to cover up something that went wrong as they were trying to figure out a way to weaponize something. I could see that happening, and then them trying to cover it up. But to simply say we're just going to lay waste to our people as to impact the globe, that just seems like Dr. Evil kind of stuff, not Hollywoodish, not like you would really do it.
That's China, Dr. Evil. Period. End of discussion. They want to take over the world. They want to be the leaders of the world, and they'll do whatever.
I think for sure they
want
to be they want to be a peer of ours, and they probably are, and they want to be hegemonic leaders in that part of the world, maybe the whole globe. I don't know. But let me ask you before we run out of time, Brian, because I'm interested in the answer. What would it take for you? Who would have to tell you this is real for you to say, okay, I'm going to go get the jab. I'm going to put on the mask?
I think people would have to be dropping like flies. I know people that died
in hospitals, though, right? Like if hospitals were like, hey, we're losing people by the truckfuls, would that be enough?
I'd have to see people in front of me falling dead, because I just don't trust it anymore. And George, with the mask thing, a general contractor went to a school board meeting that I attended, and has this air sensor from OSHA, and when it goes off, he has to shut down the site, which means there's poor ventilation, there's not clean air. He has to shut the site down. He brought his daughter in wearing a mask. After 5 minutes of her wearing a mask, he put that sensor up to her mouth and it went off. He said, if this was my construction site, I would have to shut it down per OSHA standards.
Yeah.
So every single day, my daughter is...
Mask makes it a tougher conversation.
I'm not saying it doesn't prevent... I'm not saying it doesn't help. It does help the spread. But the adverse effects that a mask is having on somebody
Brian, get to it, buddy.
is far worse than what it's protecting.
Thank
George.
you. Hey, Brian, thanks for the call. Listen, we're going to get to your calls after this. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. Brauchler back with you here, halfway through the Hump Day show, which means every minute of this show is another minute towards another glorious weekend, the first one in December. Yep, it's a drill weekend for Big Daddy. But we are in the midst of a topic that I think is timely and also important to discuss as the developments in China take place here. If you're just tuning in, there is an increasing number of stories about something going on in China. I presume the reaction to it with the media is the product of our recent past with COVID coming out of the Wuhan wet lab and spreading across the planet Earth and killing millions of people, and our response to it. And so what's happened is there's a respiratory illness that seems to be plaguing mostly children out there. They've called it the white lung syndrome. That's the people, you know, in the towns and the villages and the cities and stuff. Doctors are saying, no, it's really just kind of like a flu kind of a thing. No big deal. Here's all our data. We're not pulling a Wuhan wet lab thing. But the question is, because I've heard a lot of people speculate, this is COVID-19 2.0. This is going to perfectly timed for the next election when Joe Biden's on the ballot. This is going to be another effort to further infringe upon our liberties and to try to impact the election here. I don't know, maybe globally. I don't know what else is going on election-wise there. But it begs the bigger question for me, like, okay, well, wait. What would it take for you after this last round of COVID-19 stuff? What would it take for you to now say, okay, government, you've said I need this jab in order to minimize the impact or the risk of this infection. I'm going to get it. Or a mask would matter. Now, a lot of folks, maybe I shouldn't have gone down the mask road, but I want to hear from folks because so many people are like, well, the masks don't work. I'm like, let's pretend they do work. Okay, let's just pretend for purposes of this conversation that mask technology has gotten to the point where it's actually effective. Who would you need to hear from to go, okay, you tell me this is going to protect me and my family, I'm going to do it. Who would you need to hear from? 303-696-1971 is the number. The texts, a ton of them. Someone says your audio is distorted on app. Well, Billy, that may have something to do with the computer thing. I don't know. I'm not sure about China wanting to take over the world. Since Vietnam, I'm hard-pressed to find a military conflict in which China played a major role in other than border disputes with India and then, of course, Taiwan. Another text. George, when a surgeon is in the O room, he changes his mask several times. Why do you think he does that? It itches? I don't know. I mean, look, I'm going to presume that in surgery, dudes are wearing and dudettes are wearing masks because the germ thing is real and the masks minimize the potential for that. That's my best guess. Another text. I'm sorry, but after the last round, the government is no longer to be trusted, especially if Joe Biden is supposedly our leader. That's from George in Westminster. Let's get to the phone lines. JD, you're on 710 KNUS. JD, what do you think?
Hey, thank you so much. Now I forget what I was going to say, but I think I never got the I don't think about that shot because I think an old man told me, I'm 50 years old now, when I was 22 years old, and he told me this, respectable man, God rest his soul, but he says, always follow the money. He goes, you have issues with this and you have issues with that. He goes, so do I. He goes, but always remember this, follow the money and you will be able to solve your problems. And I think about
so
that.
What does that mean to you in this context, JD? What does that mean here?
With the vaccine, Johnson & Johnson's making a killing. Are they in bed? Whoever's making the vaccine? Well, if they make it a mandate so everybody has to get it, well, who's making the profit?
Okay, but Billy, I'm sorry, Billy. Good Lord, sorry, but JD.
It doesn't matter. No, you're good. You're good, man.
No, it does because Billy was just in my ear telling me something. But JD, if your doctor tells you, JD, you're sick, you have this infection, you need to go have this, take this pill. Do you ask him, where does that come from? Who makes money off of this pill? Are you only telling me that because you have a profit motive do you do that?
Well, I do know. See, I have a nurse, which is, I'll tell you a screwed up story. So I have a friend that's an RN, and she works in like the nursing homes and hospitals up there in the Fort Collins and Loveland areas. And she said, this is screwed up. she goes, so somebody passed away in the nursing home because they had 5 or whatever people in there, and he had a heart attack. And so then the doctor wrote down this and that. That's what he died of, a heart attack. And then she's seen the final paperwork, and they put /COVID. And so she went and questioned, why did you put /COVID? He did not die of COVID. And they said, well, because the government gives the facility more money however many people we get that die of COVID. So that's why we put /COVID. So therefore we get more federal funding. Follow the money. So she was mad.
Okay. Listen, I understand that, and I do think pharmaceutical companies make more money than we can possibly know. I believe that, and I believe that they have a vested interest in their product. Agreed. But there's got to be something that transcends that at some point. Like, it can't be, hey, follow the money, and therefore if Donald Trump, JD, came out and said, I'm going to wear a mask, I'm getting a jab, this time it's real, it has me freaked out. Would that change your mind, or are you in a place where you're like, nope, I'm not going to do it ever, under no circumstances?
No, I'm not going to do it because I spent when I was 6 months old, I don't remember, but I was 6 months old or whatever have you. So I spent 1.5 years of my life in a bubble in Denver. It's at the whatever that is for kids.
Hold on. Were you John Travolta, Boy in the Bubble? Did you ever see that show?
No.
Oh, well, you gotta watch this. This could be you.
No, I don't watch movies much, but so therefore I spent 1.5 years of my life because I have asthma and all that other stuff, so that's where Mom and Dad had to leave the farm, and they had to drive me down and go see me at that medical center in Denver there, so I spent 1.5 years of my life in a bubble because of my asthma and my allergies and all that stuff that I had, but Mom told me, she goes, so there was when I was born, Mom said that there was, at the time, they had to give every newborn baby these 3 shots. So I was born in 1975. So Mom said they gave me these 3 shots, and I think some of those shots might have contributed to my bad allergies and stuff that I have now.
Why do you think that? Who told you that?
Well, the doctors have told me that. A couple of doctors have said that those vaccines that they gave every newborn baby in 1975, they weren't fully, they weren't always, they hadn't been out for a long time. So they weren't proven to be effective. So therefore, and I think that's what they're doing with the COVID vaccine. And that's where I have a problem with this COVID vaccine. I haven't got the COVID vaccine, and I will not get it because I'm scared. I don't know what
what could get you past the fear? What could get you past the fear, JD? Not about that last one, but about the next one. What could get you past the fear? What could get you to the place where you'll do it? Who has to tell you, yes, this is it, and it's okay?
No, I won't do it. I'll never do it. I'll never do it.
No matter what.
I don't trust what they do it because somebody's getting, the pharmaceutical companies are getting a kickback for all this stuff. It's almost like we have to make every other house have a wheelchair ramp. Okay, that's just for safety purposes. Every other house on the block has to have, and the city is going to make. I'm just going with the city has to make a law. Every other house for safety. It's all for your safety. Has to have. You can't have stairs. You have to make sure you have a wheelchair ramp. Accessible. So therefore, but somebody else, and then you have to hire 1 or 2 of these other 3 contractors to. So therefore, they're given the money. That's where I say follow the money. Okay, so now this company is going to put in wheelchair ramp. That company is going to do that. It's kind of like a small politics is what I call it. Is the scenario I'm trying to show you here.
JD, I get it. I think the overarching
and they're doing that.
thing
They're doing that with our pharmaceutical companies. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you. Follow the money, and you'll find
JD, this is super helpful, man. Thanks for the call. 303-696-1971. JD has, I think, along with our other callers, has really captured, I think, the predicament in which we find ourselves. And we can blame Fauci and the CDC and all that other stuff. But it feels like right now there is a large percentage of the population that no matter what happens would never, ever, never go get the jab or put on a mask if the government asked them to do it. I should have asked people too, like, do you get a flu shot? Why do you get a flu shot? I do. I get a flu shot, frankly, whether I want to or not, because the Army. But why would you get a flu shot? Do you take a multivitamin? Why do you take a multivitamin? Do you do anything that is health related, and why do you do that? Who told you to do that? Who told you it was okay to do that? And what I worry about is we have gotten to the point where the government is so mistrusted at every level. Like, I haven't even heard someone say, hey, if Trump came out and said it, I'd probably believe it. Wow. Because we believe everything else that guy says about every topic. It's interesting. The damage from our response to COVID-19 may be so much bigger than we know for this generation. This may be a generation that is more vulnerable to almost everything because anything the government says is to be mistrusted. And for JD, it's, well, you got to follow the money. Okay, follow the money. I get it. But not every decision in life is answered by follow the money. Like, I went to the store and bought food. Do I follow the money where the food comes from and who might be trying to put that food on my... No, man. I want to go get the Cinnamon Toast Crunch because that's what the kids want to eat, period. This is kind of like that for me, health thing. We're going to get to Barbara and the other calls on the line at 303-696-1971. Just a moment here. I want to tell you somebody I trust. Mitch Floria with the Art of Granite. Here's a guy that has been living up to his word for a long, long time now, since he came over from communist-controlled Romania, fled to freedom here, started a new life, got his family, his business going, and he does business the old school American way. Put his hand in your hand, look you in the eye, make you a promise, and then live up to the promise. Frankly, overachieves. If that's what you're looking for with your counter space in your kitchen, your bathroom, maybe that finished basement, this is who you got to call, Mitch Floria. He gives you his cell phone number, 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919. You can check him out at theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. By the way, little tip, you're always going to get the wholesale prices, but if you tell him you listen to this show right here, The George Show on 710, he's going to throw in the bathroom countertop with your kitchen countertop package. Or if you're only doing one room, that's okay. He'll throw in the sink for free with the kitchen countertop or with the bathroom countertop. There's really no good reason not to call him if you're in the market to beautify the interior of your home. That's Mitch Flory at the Art of Granite. Barbara, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think? I'm sorry. Did I say Barbara? I meant Karen. Karen, you're on 710 KNUS.
Hi, how are you doing today, George?
I'm living the dream, Karen. What are your thoughts on all this stuff?
So I'm a registered nurse. I'm retired 25 years. And the viruses themselves are opportunistic infections that are microns in size. They're not even visible to the naked eye. And the masks that a lot of people are wearing, those blue ones, are called procedural masks in the hospital. And we use them for procedures, as in wound changes, dressings, and that kind of thing. And they're really designed to contain droplets. And they're meant to protect the wearer from any kind of splashback from the wound. And they're meant to protect the wound from any kind of any body fluids that we might have in our mouth or respiratory system. So they're really not designed for viruses. And the as far as the wear of these masks, a lot depends on hygienic finesse as far as how efficacious that they are. And the general public has not been really trained like we have been trained in the hospital on how to don a mask and how to take off a mask and how important
I use my hands.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are touching their face and their nose and their mouth and that kind of stuff. And they're not really washing their hands in between putting on and taking off a mask. Some people I've seen during the pandemic will wear that mask all the way home in their car. like they're alone by
I've seen
themselves in
people
their
in
car.
masks in cars all by themselves too. And I'm like, what do you think is going on in there?
I don't know. There's a whole psychological story to be played out there, but I
Well,
think
so Karen,
I
were you
envision.
a masker during the COVID, or did you say, I'm not doing this? This is silly.
No, I complied at first, and then the data started coming out. I complied because I wanted to go grocery shopping. I complied
Okay.
because I needed to do some things that they would prevent me from doing unless I had a mask on. But people are generally just not trained. I mean, I saw people wearing not only these masks, but blue gloves while they were driving down the highway,
Oh boy.
you know?
Well, you know what
And
though?
we,
When I see that, I'm thinking stolen car. They're just trying not to leave prints. You know. That's, can I
before the
ask you this?
pandemic,
What about the vaccine / jab thing? Did you do that? And did you do it because your employer
yeah, I
required you
did
to, or
it. Well,
because you believed in it?
Well, I was a pro-vaxxer, and I still am a pro-vaxxer. I got all of the childhood vaccines. My kids did, my grandkids did, that kind of thing. But things have changed radically with the CDC and the FDA and the Pfizer. Pfizer actually came out last year and admitted that their vaccine does not prevent the transmission of COVID from one person to the other. And that was
What does it do?
That was startling.
Yeah, but what
I
does
don't
it
know.
do?
They
It's not a
apparently did
placebo.
not test this out to fruition before they gave it to people.
Does it?
Yeah.
I've heard that some of these vaccine things that we were told to take minimize the impact of the COVID. Is that true in
Yeah,
your experience?
they do say that, and I can't really argue that. I mean, they apparently help prevent or keep people off of ventilators in the hospital once they do
That's a
get the
big deal.
disease. And I don't really see studies personally that really bear that out. But if they want to say it, I suppose they can say anything. But we took the vaccines, the first one, because we had to, and it was societally acceptable at the time. And I usually have trusted pharmaceutical companies, the CDC, the FDA. So I'm a nurse who was locked in with traditional medicine before all this took place.
Well, let me ask you, now that you're retired, you're out of the game, but you still have
Yes.
all that experience, all that knowledge. What would it take for you to go back down that road? Like, who would you trust if they came out and said, Karen, got to get this shot? Not as a function of employment, not as a function of, hey, you need it to get into this store, nothing like that. Just, this is necessary to help save your life, or at least minimize the chances of getting whatever this illness is.
Everything that we've witnessed over the last 2 years or 3 years, it would have to be rolled back through transparency by the FDA, the CDC, Pfizer, Moderna. They all have to come clean. And I don't see that happening.
Is there any chance that, like, what if, I don't know who you supported for president, but let's pretend it's Donald Trump. If Donald Trump came out and said, folks, I'm telling you, I'm sold, I believe it, got to get the vaccine, or got to get the jab, got to do it. Would that change your mind at all?
No, because politicians are in medicine. They really don't know. They're just going by what the whoever physician group, whatever their agenda is telling them.
Really?
And
Is that true for
believe,
any other aspect of medicine, Karen, or just the COVID thing?
I don't know. I can't really speak to that.
Well, how about a flu shot? Do
but
you get a flu shot every year?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, as a nurse, it was required to work in the hospital.
No, but you're
and
not a
so
nurse
it's
anymore. You're retired. You've earned it. Now what?
Yeah, but I haven't gotten any kind of flu since I started taking it 20 years ago. The
So
other
for
thing I
you,
know
it's
from
one of it's cause and effect in your mind. I take this shot, I don't get it, therefore
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah, if I kept getting the flu in spite of the vaccine, yes, I wouldn't take it.
Okay,
But
now I did the shots during the COVID thing, largely because of my son, and also, by the way, the Army was like, "You're going to go get the shots," but I didn't get the COVID. So does that mean it worked?
I don't know, because some people they're finding have immunity to COVID before this even started because they've been cross-contaminated with COVID variants. I mean, there's like 7 natural COVID viruses that have been around for thousands of years before this ever took place. So COVID really is not a new virus. I mean, it's been around for a long, long
variation,
time. The common cold is a COVID virus. And now through mutations, now through all of the iterations of COVID, it's become a common cold. Yet the CDC still wants to vaccinate people for basically a common cold.
Well, Karen, this is so helpful. Thank you, especially from someone who worked in the field during all the stuff when it happened. Thank you so much for giving us a call.
Well, and thank you guys. I think you're doing a wonderful job, George. You're just amazing on the radio. You're full of knowledge that we all need to hear.
Well, I appreciate that. I just hope, and Karen, you're a big part of this. I just hope we're able to have these conversations, and it's timely now because we're not there, right? Like, we're not dealing with the government has come out and said, you must do this, you must do that. The state has it. We don't have Tri-County Health shutting things down. We don't have that. We're at the front edge of that. And I think realizing the limitations of what as a population we'd be willing to tolerate and what it takes to overcome our fears, that's a big deal. And I'm glad we're having that conversation here at 710 on the George Show. Give us a call. Fill up Karen's line and JD's 303-696-1971. Let's cut away for a break. But I'll tell you something that can actually make you feel good here. I'll tell you about their own studies, by the way. Ultra Botanica, you know them better as Ultra Cur. It's that free 3-day sample you can get that's going to turn into your, hey, I want to have this every day in my life. It's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, pro-good feeling, health, minimizes pain. That's what it did for me. And I think it minimized the pain as I continue to think about how this thing works for me. I think it's because the inflammation associated with overuse in my aging body, whether it's the knees or the ankles, when I run, I think that's what this patented all-natural curcumin-based supplement is doing. I think it's actually working as an anti-inflammatory, and that's making the pain go away more quickly. So if you're interested in that experience, in feeling better, then you go check out the free sample they have for you, 3-day supply at the natural grocers. You just got to go ask the vitamin manager for it. They'll give it to you. They'll give you another 3-day sample, by the way, if you ask for it, to give to a friend, relative, someone else you care about. And then try it, because their studies show that 50% of everybody that takes it experiences relief within 48 hours. That's only 2 of the 3 days of the free sample. And within that group, 50% within 2 hours. Why not go check out getultranow.com, getultranow.com, and go to your natural grocers, get the free sample, give it a shot, risk-free, pain-free. And then once it works for you, go back and get the other stuff. Hey, listen, we're going to cut away for a break. When we come back, we'll get to more of your calls and your texts. Also, opening statements begin in the final trials of the paramedics in this case, in the Elijah McClain case. It is super interesting to me. We might talk about that at some point this morning too. Super interesting to me. If we can drop in on those opening statements, I'm going to ask Billy to do it. Unfortunately, Billy's got a computer virus that I don't think can be cured with the jab. When we come back, you, me, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS, continuing this red hot topic. Lots of texts coming in. It's just not possible for me to get to all of them. So if I don't read yours, please forgive me. There's just a bunch here to try to get to. And then we'll get to the calls. We'll get to Frank and Brendan and Jim. It says, good morning, George. Public schools should be, oh no, this is a different one. Sorry. Dr. Fauci. Yeah, I get it. JD's claim is false. A quick Google is all it takes. Our dependence on an endless amounts of pharmaceutical products has not done our society much good. There are beneficial pharmaceutical products for sure, agreed, and vaccines do have value. But to blindly trust big government's dependence on lobbyist money is insane. I've lost a lot of trust because of the COVID, so I'm very skeptical. I get skepticism. I'm asking, what does it take to overcome it? I love the way suddenly it's Biden. People forget Trump was the president during COVID. I said that. Ordering lockdowns, developing the vaccines, in my opinion, the only good thing he did in 4 years. The conspiracy theories are insane. Another text, why are conservatives being duped by the anti-vax crowd? If I saw people dying in droves and I saw vaccinated people not dying in droves, then and only then would I do it if I wasn't already dead. 303-696-1971. Frank, you're on 710. What do you think?
You ask about what would you trust the government and what situations would you trust the government? I would invite people to trust themselves a little bit here and actually research things, not crackpot research, but look at what works and what doesn't. I was not immediately sold on the vaccine without first looking at it and the RNA and how it works and how the science should work. And I'm not a scientist, but I was convinced that this works. And so
where did you go to find that stuff, Frank? What did you look at?
I was literally online. I didn't go to all of the lone single doctor who says the vaccines don't work. I looked at all the collective actual experts who said, no, this works, and this is why. Here's how it works on your immune system. And the mRNA is no different than any other type of vaccine. It doesn't not work. It works perfectly well, just like a vaccine. And I listened to the experts and they said, look, this doesn't make you bulletproof, but it makes you less symptomatic. It helps tamp down the spread. And this is a virus that can mutate. So you want to do that. I also looked at just, masking. I mean, it's like your nurse caller just said. I mean, the virus doesn't just free float in no medium. It floats around in spittle and things like that. And so when you wear a mask, it reduces the ability to project out potentially contaminated spittle particles. That's why they do that in surgery. Do you want to have surgery with people who aren't wearing masks? I mean, it seems pretty obvious that you don't.
No. And I hear that part. I think what she was trying to say, though, was the virus itself is so small this can't stop it. This only stops the big chunks.
Yeah. And I never wore a mask expecting it to be like a goalie for me. I wore it so that it would be prophylactic for me not getting others infected, and that others who may be infected yet not symptomatic or whatever are spreading the virus. That's how it's supposed to work. And so, these things. I think it's not hard to understand how this works. But so I would like people to invest a little bit in trusting themselves, but also listening to the actual experts. There tends to be kind of a disdain for people who are expert in their field now, and I think that's bad. I do think that if the world was faced with something similar to the Spanish flu, it would cause people to really sit up and take notice and do things differently. And, even the anti-vax or anti-maskers would probably sit up and do the right thing and vax and mask. But
I just wonder if it would be too late if that happened. Like when people say, like Brian, who says, if I saw people dropping dead in front of me, I'm like, why would we ever let it get that far? And didn't we sort of have that with the COVID? The problem with the COVID for me is that they wanted to inflate the COVID numbers. I believe that, to the point where they didn't say, yes, COVID is not in and of itself killing all these people, but it preys upon those who are already predisposed to have these comorbidities and these other things. They didn't say any of that stuff early on. So then, like anything else, it's like Clinton with the blue dress, right? Like if he'd have just come out and said, yeah, man, huge mistake, I did it. it probably just becomes a bit of a controversy and it moves on. It's when you try to cover it up that then people never trust anything you give them again. And that's sort of where we're at, Frank, is that now, look, I appreciate your approach, which is I'm going to do my own due diligence. But at what point have we gotten so far away from trusting any part of government, no matter who's in charge, that if they say it, you actually believe it less?
Boy, that's a good way to put it. Is that if they say it, you automatically think it's just full of baloney. I'm never at that point. I mean, I don't think people should be, because I don't think that there's really I don't like to use the follow the money situation, because obviously Pfizer made money on it. Obviously Moderna made money on it, and it obviously worked. And I don't begrudge them making money on it. So it's not, those two things are not, one is not dispositive of the other. I don't automatically distrust because somebody's making money. I don't automatically distrust because somebody in the government is saying it.
Well, and your doctor's getting paid too, by the way. Your doctor isn't working for free or as a nonprofit.
Nor should they. Correct.
Right.
Nor should
That's
they.
right. In fact, if I had a doctor that said I'm willing to work for free, I'm not sure I would trust them. No, I will.
Correct.
Because I know the one that's making money off me wants me to keep coming back.
You know, statistically, the Spanish flu in America, at least, I looked at the numbers to make sure, but it was roughly, mortality-wise, it was roughly double what COVID was, at least so far with COVID. I mean, there's a lot of still people who have long haul and things like that, but who may ultimately, succumb to something that is at least in part contributed to by COVID. But you can't count that, I don't think, as a COVID death. But
but they did,
so I think
and now we're all like, well, now we don't believe you. We just don't believe you anymore.
You know what? I get that. And I think that, look, if you're hospitalized because you have almost, your lung capacity or your oxygen numbers are way down, and you're already obese and prone to have some sort of a, stroke or heart attack, and you end up dying from stroke or heart attack, what got you in the hospital was the COVID.
Soccer.
Yeah,
Hey,
I mean,
Frank,
there's not.
All great points, man. And I appreciate your approach to doing your own due diligence on this thing. 303-696-1971. I think the last thing Frank and I talked about is one that I think is even more problematic, is not just I don't trust the government, but I mistrust the government so much if they tell me to do something, I'm instantly skeptical of it. What are your thoughts on that? Brennan, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think, sir?
George. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
George. You're great. Your callers are great. And America's great.
Thank you.
And the reason I'm saying that is because this conversation shows that you're willing to engage some things. So that speaks to you, and your callers are on point. Something you mentioned earlier was like the Trump factor. Trump is a correlation to some things, but you are a wise man. You're willing to see through these calls that he's not controlling American citizens. This is a free country. Americans are independent thinkers. So Trump is a factor, but he has no power to tell people anything. People are going to do what they want to do. They may or may not be inspired by him, but I think that's revelatory. It's like
I think you're right,
people
man. I think you've hit upon something. We have not had any callers say, hey, if Trump said it, then I would probably do it. So whatever level of trust and support, that he has engendered with these folks on a whole bunch of different policy issues, it's not like it's going to make the difference if this thing happens again. How about for you? What would it take for you, Brendan, to get to the point where you would say, okay, I'll get the jab again?
Okay. A couple things I would say is that as far as politicians, I will say this, is that politicians, I think, unfortunately, I would say they've been downgraded from inspirational role model type figures to they play a functional role in the government, and citizens are more like, that person has a job to do. I want them to do their job, and that's it. We've lost the George Washington type, Abraham Lincoln type, let's go Martin Luther King type. I mean, politicians have downgraded themselves. I'm sorry. So people are really independent minded, more so than ever. And so to your question, you know, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, how about this, George? Pilgrims, okay? What you see is what's going on. If you see people going sick, word gets around, people are going to do what they need to do. They'll respond like a stock market, social stock market. That's what people are going to do. They're not going to listen to some leader. And in a minute, scientists and doctors.
But what about what happened during the COVID, right? Because we did see people. I lost friends. I'm sure you did. Friends, maybe even relatives. I did. And so I know it was happening. But I'm not sure that even those people that lost people would just simply look at that and say, well, I better do something about it. I think a lot of those people were like, well, they must have had something else going on.
And that's why I took us back. If I was really getting wild, I'd go all the way back to the Viking days. But the point is this, that listening to what somebody says, whether on social media or a leader or whoever, people are going to go back to, you know what, I'm going to hunker down. Who are my family? Who are my friends? You know, where's my church or synagogue, whatever. And it's going to go like that here in a minute, because people are not going to trust anybody except people that they already have to trust in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think you could be right. I think you could be right. I just wonder if we wait and rely upon that, is it too little too late? By the time we,
a lot of people, your last caller talked about the Spanish flu. I mean, there's things throughout history where word doesn't get around. We don't have the internet. We don't have the media, you know, getting it out there. So there's a huge delays. I mean, you know, Texas people, Emancipation Proclamation 2 years later before Texas. I mean, just think about that. There's gaps in knowledge spread. So I don't know. I mean, people are really getting sketchy on the mass media and stuff like that. So people are going to just say, you know what, I don't see that happening in my neighborhood, so I'm not going to worry about it. You know, and I think that that's a little strong. I hate to see people delay a response, but people are just going to discount what they're hearing.
I think you're right.
I don't know.
I think that's one of the conclusions I'm drawing here. And thank you for getting me there, Brennan. I do think that it's gotten to the where the skepticism is going to overtake our otherwise better judgment. And I would never blindly trust the government, but it's just crazy now. If they put their stamp of approval on something, we're like, well, there must be something wrong with that. Listen, let's cut away for a break. We'll come back. We'll get to Jim and everybody else calling in at 303-696-1971. I want to tell you about somebody that I trust. His name is Daniel J. Kaplis. Dan, I trust on the big issues of civil practice. And what I mean by that is, look, I'm a criminal lawyer guy. I've done some civil work. I trust myself on some civil work. But if it came to big questions of, hey, what's the value of this case? How do I make the most out of this case? What's the best way to present this to a jury? Dan's on a very, very, very short list of people that I would say help me talk through this. And the reason for that is, even though I may be a courtroom experienced prosecutor, there are just some things that he knows from having done this longer and at a different level and in a different arena than I do. And so I'm telling you, if you're listening to a guy who's done some of the biggest cases in the state, if not the country at the time, and I would rely upon Dan's advice for how to conduct a trial. Imagine what you get when you hire him. Or Babar Wahid, his partner, who I've done a trial with about 17 years ago, I think it was now, to represent you or a loved one when they've been hurt by somebody else. You're getting in some ways, and in no way am I dating him in this way, you're getting the Obi-Wan, right? I fancy myself much more of not the Darth Vader guy. I'll be the Luke, but you're getting Obi-Wan, man. Trust the Force right there. This guy knows how to tap into it to your benefit. He's been doing it forever. Every time the guy's off the radio in one way or another, it's because he's in front of a jury getting justice for a client. You could be one of them. 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or check him out at dankaplislaw.com. That's Kaplis, Kaplis law.com. When we come back, you, me, this topic, 710 KNUS. Temple Pilots here on 710 KNUS. Thanks to all the great callers on this thing. Way more text than I can get to, but I will try to read through as many as I can before we run out of time here. If the shot is safe and beneficial, why does Big Pharma need immunity? What do we do with excess deaths that continue since 2019 worldwide? A couple things. One, I think the immunity thing is probably a product of how quickly this thing had to go to market, but I imagine that there is a risk of being sued even on all the stuff that works because nothing works 100%. When they tell you churches need to close, but not, I think you meant liquor stores. I'm sure it translated to lacquer stores, but liquor stores, I'll remain skeptical. Honest, independent, intelligent-minded people see the COVID lie for what it is. An attack, I think you mean attack, on Americans by enemies, foreign and domestic. Now listen, before we get to the rest, when you characterize that in that way, what you're saying is anybody that disagrees with you is dishonest, dumb, and not independent. That's tough, man. When you call that in, that's just tough then to deal with the rest of it. It says morons run all over the cliff with the stampeding herd. Government-sponsored MSM propaganda controls the stampeding herd of useful idiots. These are willfully subjugated. Someone said, can you tell me who said to fear the saying, I'm with government and I'm here to help? That was our buddy Ronald Reagan, and he was right. Caller is uninformed about the vaccine injuries. I know too many people who have died or have life-altering injuries after getting the vax, and Pfizer is protected from liability. Someone questioned who's expert. I missed that. There are plenty of studies that find masks don't protect others or the wearer. In fact, they are detrimental to the person wearing them. They breed a cozy, warm, moist environment for bacteria. I get that. I didn't want to debate the efficacy of the mask. I really wanted to get to the point of the conversation of who do you trust? And I think we've had a great conversation with that. That won't be the end of it. Hey, when we come back, DJ Summers from the Common Sense Institute, some stuff going on with deaths on our streets. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here at 710 KNUS, the final hour of the show. Listen, we could have kept doing that other topic the rest of the morning, and we're going to revisit this thing. There's no doubt about that. This thing isn't going to go away, although I hope the thing in China does. Instead, I want to shift gears and cover something else that's happening a little closer to home and a little more immediately. You know that the homeless issue dominated a large part of the election for mayor of Denver. You know that every time we've had Mayor Johnston on, and he's been good about coming on. I'm sure he's going to come on in the next couple of weeks. Billy gets him every month. There has been a discussion about what do we do with the homeless or the unhoused. And I don't think we've ever really appreciated the size of the problem or how dire it is. The good news is there's an organization called the Common Sense Institute out there. I'm a criminal justice fellow for them, me and Mitch Morrissey, and we do a whole bunch of crime stuff. But there are other wicked smart people out there working on other issues like the homeless. Joining right now on the VIP line is, and I agree with Kristen Strom on this, he has a name that has to be read a certain way. Now introducing DJ Summers. DJ, thanks for joining us.
Oh, George, I feel like I ought to have some like fight walk-up music after that intro. That was not bad.
You should. What would it be?
I'm gonna have to say "Mouth for War" by Pantera. It's an oldie but a goodie from the heavy metal days in the 90s.
Billy wondered if it would be Bringing Sexy Back. I thought maybe something from Taylor Swift, but nonetheless, we're here. We're going to come up with that for the next time.
One of them.
Yeah. DJ, do us a favor and tell us about your background. And I'm a big guy on finding out where did you grow up, where did you go to high school, that kind of stuff, and then get into how you ended up at Common Sense Institute, and then we'll talk about this incredible, very, very impactful report.
Absolutely. I grew up mostly in Utah and New Mexico. We moved from Albuquerque to Salt Lake City when I was about 8 years old, and I grew up in beautiful suburban Salt Lake City. Went to high school at Cottonwood High and got into journalism after there. I spent most of my career up until the Common Sense Institute working for newspapers. I was working in business news. I covered cybersecurity for Fortune magazine for a little while back east. Wow. I was in Alaska covering business news. Wrote a book on the business of marijuana back when it was legalized here and in Alaska, and then Oregon, other places, just a little deep dive into how the regulations were panning out. Did some work at think tanks as well, but most recently, I was the data reporter at Fox 31 Denver until I got the job here as director of policy and research for the Common Sense Institute. Turns out we were covering a lot of the same stuff, so folded over, and it's been wonderful.
DJ, other than the impact of the growing number of protection orders against you across the country, what drove you to Colorado?
The beauty. For one, it feels like home. Growing up in Utah, you get a feel for the mountains. You can't really live anywhere with high humidity. Anything more than 1 or 2 points of humidity makes me feel like I'm sitting in a sauna. So I knew I wanted to be back. I knew I needed to be out west. I knew I needed to look for employment out here. So I wanted it to be, near the mountains, in the nice dry air at high elevations. Also, my family lives out here. One by one, most of us have migrated from Utah out here to Colorado.
Oh,
and I like being near my family as well. So it kind of panned out that the right job happened at the right time in the right place.
Well, we're glad you're here. You have jumped headlong into this unhoused or homeless issue and generated a report. I'm looking at some of this stuff right now. It's eye-opening. Let's just talk a little bit about deaths. What did you discover? And it's not just Denver, by the way. This is something that's going on nationwide. What did you discover about the homeless and deaths?
Deaths in Denver among the homeless are at a crisis level right now. In 2022, there were 226 deaths recorded by the Denver Medical Examiner. That's just in Denver proper. That is the most there have ever been on record. It is absolutely at a crisis point.
That's more deaths than are created by murder I think, in Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, their high water mark just a couple of years ago was somewhere around just under 100, let's say between 90 and 100. This is more than double that.
Yeah. In fact, if you stretch this out across the Front Range, you end up with more homeless deaths than deaths that have been committed by gun violence across the entire Front Range. If you take up those Front Range counties in 2022, there were 196 gun-related deaths. So the homeless issue with deaths among homelessness in Denver alone trumps gun violence along the Front Range in total.
Are you suggesting we should have a waiting period for homelessness? No, I'm kidding.
I'm wondering,
no, I'm kidding.
maybe waiting period.
Yeah, maybe that's what's going on with these micro homes. When you go to research this, where are you going to find those numbers? And for the homeless, when they die, is it a product of their status as homeless that makes them part of that 226? Is there something about where they die, when they die, how they die? Like, is it overdose, exposure, malnutrition? I mean, what's the overwhelming stuff here?
The biggest point here is that it is largely an overdose problem. Over half of the deaths recorded by the Denver Medical Examiner in 2022 were from overdoses. They were 56% in total. That far outweighs the deaths from exposure or any other single cause. It is an overdose problem through and through.
Some of the stuff that's in the stuff you sent me that I found eye-opening were the numbers in other cities. Some are similar size to Denver, but we had, in the same year that Denver lost 226, that was 2022, Seattle had 220. Portland, which is Multnomah County, they had 193, 311 in San Diego. Here's the one that is ridiculous. 3,183 in Los Angeles. Now, I know that's a matter of scale, but oh my God, they have more than 3,100 people dying on the streets from, I presume, largely from drug overdoses.
Yeah. It is similar in other places to us. Sometimes they list all of those differently. Here in Denver, we're lucky enough to have medical examiners block that out by specific cause, substance abuse, overdose, and that accounts for, like I said, just half. Sometimes they count it as an accidental death in Los Angeles or Multnomah County, places like that. They don't always categorize it the same way. So we don't know how much of those populations are strictly from drug overdoses, since some of them are listed as accidental death. But you have to assume that what happens in one city may be happening in another. If homelessness numbers are rising roughly equivalently across a lot of these different cities, drug overdose is going to play a large role there, like it does here, with over half our homeless dead from overdose.
We're talking with DJ Summers from the Common Sense Institute about this report. It says over half, that's 56% of the unhoused who died in 2022 in Denver were from a drug overdose. Now, that's a ton, but these other numbers also very interesting / concerning. About 23 to 20, I'm guessing 23%, so almost 1 in 4 died from either chronic disease or infectious disease. Like, what kind of infectious disease is killing these guys?
I don't really know. They don't list that out in the Denver Medical Office's reports. But in past reports, they've mentioned things, you've got chronic diseases, cancer, you have other respiratory illnesses that affect people, particularly in the winter. I've read those in previous reports. So those could be there as well. Now, unfortunately, we can't really tie any of that to COVID necessarily, but there is almost definitely some crossover with respiratory illnesses from COVID.
Exposure was good for 1 in 20, but here's something. 1 in 11 died because of stabbings, beatings, or shootings. Oh my God, that's a ton.
Blunt force, sharp force trauma, and shootings. That accounts for a good fraction of those. It's mostly blunt force, as a matter of fact. The stabbings and the shootings are less common than blunt force trauma.
So wait a minute. I'm trying to picture this now. People are being clubbed to death or hammered to death?
Clubbed to death, hammered to death, beaten to death. Blunt force trauma means exactly
could be fists,
that.
You're right. Could be fists and feet.
Yeah.
If you take that 226 and you take the 9% of that, you're looking at probably what, 20 to 21. And I don't know if they're all murders. Maybe they're self-defense, but I'm just going to presume they were homicides. That means 20 to 21 homicides in 2022, which has got to be 1 in 5, maybe even 1 in 4 of the homicides in Denver were unhoused and do you know from your research, DJ, were these stabbings, beatings, and shootings from other homeless people? Or, I mean,
we don't know that. We only know the causes of death. We don't know the perpetrators.
That's so interesting. When you're looking at all this information and pulling this together, is there any sort of a cost that can be attributed for this? And that's a tough question too, but in a civil case, when somebody is killed from someone's negligence or recklessness, you try to affix some sort of a value, whether it's lost earnings or the cost of care, the cost of all that other stuff. Is there any way to do that for numbers like this? Is there any way to assess the impact on society of these 226 losses?
I mean, you can always go the John Donne route and say that one man's death diminishes me, for I am part of mankind. 226 deaths a year among one group of the population. I mean, that's just a tragic human cost on its face. And it's a tragic human cost that it comes with greater numbers than what's happening just with gun violence. I mean, this is just a citywide tragedy on its face. That human cost alone is pretty much invaluable. A human life is just worth what it's worth. But there are ways to calculate some of the economic and the social costs that come from homelessness. You can go back and refer to our previous reporting from the Common Sense Institute about how much this costs the city and how many billions we've spent in services from our previous reports.
Yeah, billions.
With a B.
That's a big one, but billions. When you look at this, have you had a chance yet to see numbers on a monthly basis coming out in 2023? And really where I'm going with this is, when do we have a chance to sort of evaluate whether 2023 is going to be better or worse? And are there numbers that make sense to look at that give us an indication as to whether Mayor Johnston's micro home community thing is working?
We do have updated numbers from the Denver Medical Examiner's office, and I haven't checked the most recent numbers. I think the most recent reporting was something like 170, 180, somewhere in the upper hundreds. But we don't know whether or not that's going to be the case through the end of the year comparative to 2022. We won't really know until early next year. It takes city offices some time to really calibrate the final numbers and attribute certain deaths at certain times. So we're not going to really understand the full scope of the homeless death total in 2023, probably until early next year.
That's interesting. I think there's a lot of jury is out on the mayor. We were told the other day that, his pledge was, I'm going to get 1,000 people off the streets by the end of 2023, by the end of December. And he still had 700 more to go. As of a couple days ago, it's going to take a while to figure out how to measure not this is impactful at all, but it seems like the death thing would be a pretty easy go-to. I'm just sorry we have to wait maybe a year to get there.
We might have to wait a little bit. Yeah, the data is so important in knowing where to go next and in knowing whether or not any of our programs have any kind of efficacy, whether or not they're lessening deaths, whether or not they're taking people off of the streets and out of dangerous environments. It just takes time to know that. It takes time, and it takes effective, clean data.
DJ, where can folks go to look at the reports and the information and all that stuff that you guys are generating?
Common Sense Institute is at commonsenseinstitute.com.
I think it's commonsenseinstituteco.org.
co.org. Did I just refer to my own email address again?
I think I think it's at commonsenseinstituteco.org. If that's wrong, call me or call Billy and we'll fix it. But I'm almost positive it's commonsenseinstituteco.org. If there is a commonsenseinstitute.com, I just presume it's a porn site. No, I'm kidding. I don't know what it is, but commonsenseinstituteco.org is where I've gone in the past. And again, man, Common Sense Institute, I talked with Kristen yesterday. You guys are blowing up, man. Whatever this model is for going out and getting sort of this nonpartisan data to advance policy discussions, it's here. It's in Arizona. It's in Iowa. I think you guys are talking about going to your home state of Utah and some other states. I keep begging her to expand to a place called Hawaii and then maybe, bring me in to do something, sharpen pencils or talk about it. But you guys are doing great work and keep it up and keep coming back on the air to tell us about it.
Anytime, George. And you let me know if your 4-dimensional game of chess with the Hawaii move works out. I can maybe install myself along with you.
Thanks, man. That's DJ Summers from Common Sense Institute. You can find the reports most likely at commonsenseinstituteco.org, maybe commonsenseinstitute.com. Let me know what you find when you get there. Hey, listen, we're going to cut away for a break. When we come back, though, I want to ask you your reaction to this. And the reason I think it's impactful is, one, it's 226 people. DJ says that's more deaths than we get from gun violence up and down the Front Range. What? I mean, it's not that we don't take it seriously with money, but why aren't we seeing more and more focus by the mainstream media and the legislature on tackling that rather than trying to strip guns out of the law-abiding people's hands? Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And the other question I have for you is, be candid with me. You can use any name you want when you call us at 303-696-1971. In fact, I prefer it if you just continue to use Billy or some version of that name. But do you care? And I don't mean like, oh, yes, I'm a Christian and it's my fellow man and I do. Do you care? Or is it like, yeah, well, it's not really a thing that affects me. I don't live near homeless. I don't know any homeless. I'm not homeless. I mean, honestly, do you just kind of shrug and go, yeah, that's a real bummer? Or do you see it as a crisis? 303-696-1971. Hey, holidays are upon us. This is, in fact, we're in that sweet spot, and there ain't much of it left between Thanksgiving and when the Christmas holiday or the Hanukkah holiday gets underway. This is the time you call out Brent and Joyce Tolliver. They're the mom-son team that have come up with Roll 'em Out Shelves, which is a brilliant business that makes your house a happier place. And it makes it happy because it makes it more efficient. You have to spend less time on your hands and knees digging around in the dark for something in the back of a giant cabinet or any kind of laundry room or garage, bathroom. Less time doing that and more time feeling like, oh, I found exactly what I needed when I need it. You know that satisfaction you get from that? These people do that on steroids. Give them a call for the free in-home analysis. And I'm telling you, and I got to have them come out actually too. Frankly, if Billy reminds me, I may call them today and see if they can't come out next week. Book your free in-home estimate today, 303-475-9601, 303-475-9601. You will end up, in my opinion, joining all of the, and when I say all of the, I mean 100% 5-star Google reviews. Unless you only have one customer, and they don't, and it's your son, you're not going to get all 5-star reviews unless you're awesome. And that's these people right here. Check them out at rollemoutshelves.com, rollemoutshelves.com. Hey, when we come back, we'll get to your calls at 303-696-1971 and your texts. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly to clear the clutter. Contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
George Brauchler back with you. 710 KUS, having an off-air conversation with Billy and lost sight of the sound. I'm like, I think we're back on. Talking about the unhoused or homeless issue. Frankly, I don't even understand the difference between the words or why one is more preferable than the other. Like homeless is you are without a home. Unhoused sounds like it's not your fault. Like somebody took you out of your home and therefore you can't be blamed. And is that it? That the terminology has to be one that's very gentle to your psyche? Pretty sure if you're living on the streets, you don't give a crap what they call you, right? I mean, homeless, you're without a home. That's it. Or is it to say that your home is the streets, you're unhoused, you don't have a physical house? I don't know. It's all this ridiculous, politically sensitive.
George, my favorite is where they're experiencing homelessness.
They're
That's my
experiencing
favorite.
homelessness.
Yeah, that's my favorite because, oftentimes we use that elsewhere in the media. Several times over the weekend, there were people in Denver that experienced murder. And
the other one is you can't be a defendant anymore. You are criminal justice involved.
Yes, exactly. You can't be a defendant.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Like everything is like, well, because we're dehumanizing them by reducing them to nonetheless, that's not our topic.
Now, I got a question for you though on this thing with the homeless, and it's something that it's because, again, hello listener, it's because that what goes on inside my head here is a little twisted.
A little bit.
Just a little. The thing that I'm listening to, and it was great information from and shocking information from DJ. The thing that stuck up that I went, wait a minute, when he talked about 56% of the homeless deaths due to overdose, and that is awful. It shows that we are having an epidemic. But inside of my twisted head, I had a little voice go, that's a problem. Not because of the deaths, but what I'm envisioning is that the liberals will reach into DJ's report, pull out that one fact and say, look, since 56% of those, and I'm using this in air quotes, experiencing homelessness are dying because of drug overdoses, it means obviously, we have to have safe drug injection sites. I'm worried they're going to use that to make that conclusion. I disagree with them wholeheartedly, but I'm worried that when you have the majority of them dying that way, it gives wind to the sails.
You know what? That's a great point, Billy. And I wonder is there a threshold number of lives that can be, and I'm using air quotes on the YouTube and Rumbles here too, that can be saved where you would say, okay, I mean, if we can save half of them, if we can save 113 people a year, which over a decade is 1,000 plus people. If we can save 113 people, then I'd be down with the safe injection site. Is there a number that we would say, if it saves these lives, we're good to go?
That's a really good question, because the idea being, and we always hear this from the very bleeding hearts, if we can just save one life, isn't it worth it? Isn't it? If it's just one, not a threshold, but isn't it worth it? That's the argument inside of that safe drug injection site, is that just the idea of preventing that one person from overdosing proves the efficacy and the need for the facility, which again, I wholeheartedly disagree with, but that's their argument.
Yeah, I don't think one does it, but is there a number?
Yeah.
Or is there not, or is it just a matter of principle or philosophy? I think it's got to be more than that. Like the harm reduction people that are out there, who I think are just so toxic for any resolution to this. They're people that I've listened to them testify at the legislature on this. This isn't made up or speculative, where they will just say, hey, you can't get someone to stop taking drugs until they're ready to. So all we should be doing is working on keeping them alive long enough for them to come to that realization and then seek help. And that's why you get these bonehead suggestions like, let's co-locate a safe injection site with a get off drug site that we can put upstairs, or something. And I'm like, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Because people are going to go into the bottom, shoot up, and then manage the stairs on their way upstairs to go, can I get a pamphlet?
They've gone through everything they needed to in order to get the drugs to inject into their system.
Right.
And then they're going to decide, I don't need this anymore.
I wonder, and I've never asked this, what happens if on a safe injection site, somebody wanders in off the street and they say, hey, we will test your drugs for you, okay? Because we want to make sure you don't OD on the fentanyl. They test it and they go, ooh, this has a ton of fentanyl. It could kill you. Are they going to not let them take it? I mean, are they going to say, no, you can't have this? Pretty sure they can't do that. That'd be a taking of some sort. Or are they, what if the guy says, I don't care, man, I'll roll the dice? Do they help inject them with something that could kill them? Do they send them out and say, you're going to have to go do this on the street? I mean, what's the immediate action drill for that?
You know what my best guess is, and I don't know. I am talking, and I know that, yes, you listener, you think that I do this often, but I'm going to admit that I do it here intentionally right now. I am talking out of the other orifice of my body. I have nothing backing this up.
There's just the one.
Yeah,
huh?
no. There's another one that sometimes, according to my wife in the overnight times, sometimes quite loud. I'm just saying, I'm sharing here, being real. So all I'm saying is Daddy's a little gassy. No, what I'm saying is that, is that I would assume that given, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, if I'm that bleeding heart and that person comes in and they have the tainted drugs, rather than, and again, because this is how I think their little backwards mind works, rather than saying this is an opportunity for me to educate you and get you off the drugs, take this as an open opportunity to maybe get you into rehab. My guess is they have an alternative, almost the idea of like the methadone. It's the idea of, wait. That fentanyl is bad, but here, have this methadone, enjoy your high, I'll watch you. That would be my guess. But I don't know for certain at all. I have no information. I'm just guessing.
But Bill, doesn't that have to be the next step?
Yes,
absolutely. Is that they have to say, well, look, if we send them back out on the streets, what's the point of our existence? If we facilitate them taking drugs that we think is laced with fentanyl, how does that help? We'd be helping kill them. So what are we to do? We need to have our own clean supply of something. You know what I mean? Like I can see us getting there, like to the point where we just need to keep these zombies in zombie mode until they're ready to not be zombies anymore, which is utter garbage. It runs absolutely opposite to everything that the Step Denver people stand for. And oh, by the way, they're in the business of saving lives. What I don't hear the city saying is, let's stand up more Step Denvers. You know, instead it's let's just facilitate this drug use and this addiction. It's one of the most nonsensical things. But if they could tell you, if they could demonstrate to you, hey, Denver, I know you hate it. I know it's not the right solution for everyone. I know it doesn't actually solve the problem, but here's what we can do. We can eliminate 100 deaths a year on the streets. 100 deaths a year by doing this. Would you do it? I mean, would you say, okay, it's worth it to me to save those lives? I mean, I'll tell you who would maybe be on board with this. Maybe. I'd love to know is the church. Because, you know, the church is opposed to the death penalty, which is different only in the mechanism and the intent with death. But they're opposed to it because they want you to have the maximum amount of time to save your soul. That's one of the big arguments with the church is you need to have the maximum amount of time at redemption. Is this like that? I mean, is this the kind of thing where you say, well, if we can keep them alive long enough, maybe we can save a couple, but certainly they won't die. Yes, there'll be zombies on the street and we'll be out there peddling drugs to make sure they stay alive. I don't know. Here's some text. George and Billy, we invited the cursive homelessness when we approved marijuana, and all state that's the facts. Let me correct my text. We invited this curse when we legalized marijuana in our state. Here's one. George, are you ignorant to what I think they were trying to say crap hole, but they didn't. Denver is, you need to hang out with some more cops. I said, I'm ignorant. They said, no, you're not ignorant, just to the fact of the crime and homelessness and the something Denver has become. And I love your show. Thank you so very much. What happens when there is an error in the test that they say it's safe and turn out it's not? How long before the strong arm of Frank Azar shows up at the homeless camp? 0. Do you remember why? Because the legislation they offered for these safe injection sites created immunity for every single person involved in that process. You can solicit, you can accessory, you can, or I was going to say accessorize, but that sounds stupid. You can be an accessory, you can be an accomplice. It doesn't matter. You escape all liability if you're in there helping people shoot up with the drugs. So the answer would be 0. And that's a great question, though. What happens if they're like, no, this one's good to go. And then you take it and die from fentanyl. They're like, oh, wait a minute. I had it upside down. I mean, I don't know. Here's another. You know, I would be interested in knowing when these homeless people die, Do their families claim them? Where are they buried or cremated? What do they do with all these bodies? Well, that's a great question. I don't know. Here's another one. Homelessness is an intentional side effect of Democrat policy and legislation. Okay, and I'll read the rest of the text in a minute. Do you believe that? Do you believe they want homeless people? I'm not sure they want homeless people or create them. I think there is some political advantage to not solving any problem like that or to claiming that we haven't solved it. I believe that, but they want homeless people? Is that what, I don't know. I just can't get there with my fellow man. I think we can look differently at their policies and what their ultimate goals are. That's just a tough one. This is the rest of the text. The only fix is remove the Democrats from our current government, replace them with conservatives. I do think you'd get a different response and likely a different outcome if the legislature and certainly the city council were in the hands of more conservative, hell, I'll even take moderate voices. Joan says close to 20 deaths a month. God, that's right, Joan. You're right. That's 4 a week. Like during the weekdays, I think they only take Fridays off. Monday through Thursday, they're pulling up dead bodies off of the road or off. That's a great point. And she says more in winter, ? Yeah, I bet there is, at least for exposure. But remember, DJ's report says only about 5% of these folks over a 5-year period died from exposure. So that's not really the big bulk of it. That's just not the bulk of it. That's about 10 a year. Here's one. I'd love to teach at the high school level a year-long history course covering the events Billy Joel reviews and We Didn't Start the Fire. Children of thalidomide. Oh, this is going back to our great topic that we covered earlier today. Someone else texted in, today and tomorrow is the anniversary of the Sand Creek Massacre. We miss Tubbs, who would always give us a history lesson. Bring him back. Believe me, if I could bring Stefan back, I would, but both Stefan and the law disagree. No, I'm kidding. It's not the law. Here's one. To persuade, here it is. To motivate vagrants to sober up, make life miserable for them. Release wolves in Civic Center Park. We're going to reintroduce wolves into Denver. Look, I'm not laughing because I want to see people eaten by wolves. I'm laughing because somebody has taken a completely other event, which is the Democrats who live in Boulder and Denver, crushing ranchers by reintroducing wolves in Colorado. And by the way, the devastation is real. I mean, if you read some of the reports out there, the reintroduction of wolves has already become a bit of a catastrophe, and it's only going to get worse. But the idea of introducing them into Civic Center Park to get rid of the homeless, really, I don't know. And I'm no way wishing that to happen. I'm just saying very clever, very credible in terms of creative, not credible, very creative. Hey, listen, let me do this before we cut away for a break. We'll come back. We'll get to your calls, your texts that keep coming in, and keep them going. Also, by the way, I'm monitoring, not able to listen to it, but we're recording it, and I'm going to analyze it, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. The opening statements in the two paramedics cases, Chikuniak and can't remember the last name, Cooper, maybe Chikuniak and Cooper, are on trial right now in front of Judge Mark Warner in Adams County. We have secured, much to the chagrin, I imagine, of the rest of the free world, access to record these things through an expanded media coverage request that Billy did. Congratulations, Billy. Nailed it. And we'll talk about that. But it's going on right now. I'm watching the prosecutor right now stand up there and talk about how the paramedics are at fault for not doing their assessment, which is the opposite position of what they took with the officers, which is the officers were at fault. You can't blame the paramedics for not doing the assessment. Fun times. Listen, before we cut away, I got to tell you about QC Kinetics. If you're dealing with pain, and it gets worse in the winter, and you know why, barometric pressure and temperature wreak havoc on joints. So if it's knees, hips, back, neck, it doesn't matter. Your option is there are 3 options. Well, no, there's 4. Do nothing. That doesn't sound very good. Sounds tough. Sounds very greatest generation, but it doesn't sound good. Take a whole bunch of pain pills. That doesn't sound awesome either. There's also go under the knife. Take the knife, get cut open, do the long rehab. I'm sure that works, by the way, but the long rehab off your feet, that's what's keeping my dad away, by the way, from the surgeries, the idea of that. And then the last bestest opportunity is QC Kinetics. They use you through regenerative medicine to fix you. That's a needle in and then a needle out, and then they stick a needle in you in the places that need it, and you're already starting to heal yourself. Why not become a part of this medical revolution? It's sweeping the country. These guys are doing this border to border, coast to coast. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call them. 303-900-8986. 303-900-8986. Local medical professionals, try to stump them, man. Ask them every question you need answered before you pull the trigger on this thing. You can check them out at QC Kinetics, all one word, QCkinetics.com. But I'd give them that call. 303-900-8986. Get back to pain-free living. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Only a few minutes left. Before I get to Joan and Frank, I just want to let you know that if you're a guy out there and you are thinking about, hey, what can I do for myself this Christmas because nobody can get you this gift, call up our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration. That's Dr. Tanya Pauls and the team out there that give you the guaranteed outcome that you're looking for when it comes to restoring that youthful, healthy look that you have on your noggin. Nobody is going to give you a coupon to Advanced Hair. That's the kind of thing you got to do for yourself. And don't you deserve it? If you're a guy out there and you're like, I look older than I'm supposed to. By the way, I have that thought all the time as I look into this YouTube and this Rumble. Sadly, Advanced Hair can't help me, but if it can help you, call them at 720-459-HAIR, H-A-I-R, not the rabbit, 720-459-HAIR, or check them out at advancedhair.com. If you do and you qualify, they give you $250 off. That's real money. That's like more than $300 pre-tax, right? It takes a bit to earn that. If you're Billy, that's like 30 minutes of hard trivia work. But that's real money for everybody else. The other thing they give you, 250 free hair grafts. It starts working immediately. You start to notice the difference immediately. Why not be part of that revolution? Let's go to Joan. You're on 710 KNUS. Joan, what do you think?
Well, yesterday on my Facebook came up a thing that said I was testifying for the SIS down at the legislature, and it was 5 years ago. And we're still doing this tonight from 6 to 7 at the Phillips Methodist Church here in Lakewood at 14th and Pierce. They're going to have a discussion about how the church wants to put people that are homeless in their parking lots. And they have tried this in Denver, and I don't know of any churches that still have homeless in their parking lots. If anybody knows about that, I'd be interested. But it was tried. It was a failure. And people can come and ask questions, because the question I have is, what is the security about this?
I don't know. Joan, great question. I don't know. The security issue is a big one. We're going to see if Mike Johnson has figured that out with the micro communities. We were told, by the way, not that bad, not that unsafe. Let's get to our last call of the morning. It's Frank. Frank, you're on 710. I don't know how much time I have left, but I can give it to you.
I'll give it to you really quick. I was listening to one of your fellow stations last evening at 9 o'clock on a channel starts with a 6, 8 clicks to the left of you. A book came up by Jason Sautell, Sautell, called The Rescuer at therescuer.book.com. And he's a kid that was abused and put down all his life, finally fought back and became a fireman, but it tells of his personal story. And I think all these people that are found down dead, from drugs, every one of them under the airline model of deconstructing, going back, what happened in this person's life? Where were their chances to intervene? That would all make great fodder for schools to study an individual case. You couldn't use a personal name, but just where could an intervention or different type of things be brought in? I know if you had that ability, I know
Frank,
that's what you're trying to do.
Frank, forgive me, buddy. I've got like 10 seconds before Billy cuts us off. As always, man, thanks for listening. Thanks for the call. Hey, listen, we'll be back tomorrow to wrap it all up. My thanks to DJ Summers from Common Sense Institute. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.